My entitled family disowned me for 15 years over parking tickets, claiming that because I went to jail for 2 weeks, all because I couldn't pay for them, that this meant they needed to disown me to teach me a lesson. And now after 15 years, they finally have tracked me down and are demanding that I let them back into my life. And at this point, I'm honestly so shocked that I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 36-year-old male and I got into some trouble 15 years ago. I take all the responsibility for this. And even to this day, I carry all the shame, the guilt, and embarrassment for it as well. Also, and this might come up, this is not cultural or religion. It's just shame to the family name. The situation was when I was 19 and my ID was stolen and being used in another state. This created a situation where my driver's license was suspended nationwide. Somehow, any and all notifications from the other state never made it to me. I started doing all the necessary things I needed to do to try and fix the problem. I, however, had a couple tickets in my current state that I needed to pay, but I couldn't because I needed to pay my rent and keep my apartment. Also, at the time, my full-time job was having problems and was borderline shutting down. So to try and make ends meet, I was doing a lot of freelance work as well, which is, again, my fault. I knew the company was in trouble, but I was still holding out hope that things would get better. I was hoping that maybe if I had a couple more freelance jobs, I would be able to finally pay the tickets. But no, this was never the case. And the long story short of it is that I was arrested and spent 2 weeks in jail. This is not ideal, but I guess in the long run, it worked out for the best by clearing the tickets in my home state. However, my family felt otherwise, and I was completely disowned because of this. I lost everything and everyone. The only reason I still had my apartment was because I had enough to cover the rent, and the freelance work kept up. It took another 6 months, but I was finally able to get the other state to release my driver's license. And so I decided that since my family hated me, I didn't need them. And so a year later, I changed my last name, my phone number, and my email. My social media is locked down so tight that you would think I was hiding national security secrets. I was able to finish college and get settled into my career, and at this point, I'm happier than I've ever been. Well, fast forward to present day, and 2 weeks ago, there was a knock on my door, and guess what? It was my mom and dad. Reminder, it's been about 15 years, and I had not spoken a word to either of them. The only thing I could get out of my mouth was to say, "How did you find me, and what are you doing here?" My mom's response was to say, "We spent $5,000 on a private investigator, and finally, a search on Facebook with just your first name found you, and the private investigator confirmed that yes, it was you." I responded by saying, "You didn't answer my second question. What are you doing here?" My mom then said to me, "It's been 15 years. Looking at where you are, it seems that you've learned your lesson and you are succeeding. You've missed out on a lot of things." I then ended with, "Yes, I have learned my lesson. One of them is don't think anyone will ever help you or be understanding, even your family. And yes, I did succeed, and I did it entirely without you. Please leave and don't ever come back." I then shut the door in their face and I locked it, and I checked the back door and I closed all the curtains. I'm guessing they hung around for another 15 minutes, knocking and demanding to be let in. I then just went back to bed, turning the fan on high, and I went right back to sleep. I did some research and they were right. I have missed out on a lot. I have nieces and nephews, new brother and sister-in-laws, but the truth is I don't know any of them, and I don't think I need to. I live a very quiet life. I can count on 2 hands how many friends I actually have. A friend said I may have taken it too far and that I should have given them a chance, and if I didn't like what they had to say, then I could have told them to go away. I was hoping that this was going to be the end of it, but now they've taken to literally following my every move. And I will be completely honest, they are harmless, but just a real pain in the butt. But also, I've been messing with them with the help of my friend, and it's made the scenario just a little bit lighter and just a little bit more fun. Now, this past week, the way my days off fell, I had a 5-day stretch, so I decided to go to the city for a few days. I'm walking distance to the Amtrak station, and they followed me. So I kept my AirPods in the whole time, and I know they were trying to talk to me, but I ignored the entire time. People on the platform even were telling me that they were talking to me, and I said that I know, but I don't want to deal with them. The train eventually came, and I got on and I left them behind, and man, did I love that. It finally got to the point where I finally acknowledged them. They weren't going to go away, so we met at the park across from my apartment. And you know what? I didn't hold anything back. I told them this was the one and only time I was going to talk to them. I took a page from the Matlock series and I told them that I was their judge. I was their jury. And I then told them that as far as I was concerned, they were guilty of anything and everything. And all I was doing was hearing what they had to say before I walked away from them. I then asked them why after 15 years they're now demanding to be back in my life and why they made the decisions they did to disown me. They told me that I ruined the family name and that the shame I brought to the family was horrible and that the only way to make it right was to get rid of me. They said that recently my name has been coming up in conversations and that the family has grown with a lot of new people, that the brother and sister-in-laws are asking questions about who I am, that I have a niece who they think I would love and get along wrong with, and the same for a nephew who was born last year, stating that now should be the time to fix things. They said that looking at my apartment and the life that I had must mean that I learned my lesson about being a better person and managing my life better. I finally cut them off and I told them that I couldn't stand to hear it anymore. I mean, I was at the point I could hear my heart beating in my ears. I told them that I did everything completely by myself. Nobody from that life exists anymore, not one person. That they just need to tell everyone the truth. That I was in jail for 2 weeks, and because of this, the decision was made to get rid of me. I told them that I did it all on my own, and that only one of my cousins was actually there for me, which is a cousin by marriage, by the way, which is why I changed my last name to theirs. I told them that to this day, I'm doing everything on my own, and I rely on nobody, and I don't need or want them in any way in my life. They made their decisions, and I'm making mine. I told them this will be the last time we talk, and that I will be going to see a lawyer to see if there's anything that can be done to keep them away from me, and that if they continue to follow me around or show up at my apartment, I would have them arrested for trespassing. After that, I went back home and I again locked everything down. I pulled the curtains and I've been crying ever since then, because right now I honestly do not know what to do. Oh my god, dude, this is awful. This really is such a sad situation, because clearly you had a really rough time and nobody stepped up to help you. Like, you had these tickets that you had to pay and you couldn't do it, and so because of that you went to jail. But if your family really cared about their name and like maintaining the family honor, they would have stepped up and helped you pay for it. Like, I'm sorry, there's no excuse here. They could have helped prevent this if they really didn't want you to go to jail. But after the fact, they wanted to be like, oh man, this is too embarrassing. Our son has ruined the family name. We need to cut him out of our lives. Like, that kind of crap is so disgusting. I just can't believe they did that to you. So in my opinion, I think you're completely justified. These people turned your back on you, and even now, after tracking you down to find you, they still don't understand that you didn't do anything wrong to the family. There's no lesson to be learned, because the only lesson the original poster learned is that his family does not have his back, especially his parents, who would rather kick them to the curb instead of help them in their time of need. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I got revenge on a fellow coworker by doing to him what he did to me when it came down to marking down my time worked at the soccer games we referee for, resulting in my coworker eventually getting fired for breaking the rules. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm 15 years old and I work as a soccer referee. I will normally arrive 10 to 15 minutes early to a game, which is plenty of time to check in players from both teams and make sure the field is in proper playing condition. One game that I showed up to, I was the assistant referee. My center ref, an 18-year-old, we'll call him Dave for the sake of the story, told me that all refs need to be there 30 minutes early to every single game. Now, I know this is not true, so I just stayed silent. We ref the game as usual and returned to where we put our stuff at the end of the game. Dave then told me that because I didn't arrive 30 minutes early, he would mark that I didn't show up, basically telling me that I wouldn't get paid for the game that we had just worked. But I complained that this was a rule that he made up. He then left the game without saying anything else, figuring that would be all. Now, as a side note, and I think this is very important, if you referee without any assistant referees, you get paid like $5 more, and I honestly think that was Dave's plan all along. So when I got home, I decided to enact my revenge plan. I made sure to sign up to be center referee at every game where Dave was being an assistant referee, and poor Dave showed up to his next game 15 minutes early, which is absolutely unacceptable. I said nothing the whole game, but only marked him absent, which means he wouldn't get paid. This went on for a week and a half until his paycheck came in, and he was about $120 off of what his total should have been. And I absolutely did make sure every game that Dave was less than 30 minutes early was marked down. Well, Dave emails one of the main referees who runs everything to see what the problem was. And one of the main referees, let's call him John, told Dave that he wasn't there, meaning that he wouldn't get paid. Dave put 2 and 2 together and realized exactly what I did. Emails were then sent between Dave, John, and myself until John finally had the full story. Well, Dave was fired for making up rules, and I got paid for the first game with Dave. So it goes to show you that you shouldn't take advantage of young people, because sometimes it might backfire in a spectacular fashion. Dude, I am so proud of the original poster here. This honestly is crazy to me. First of all, that guy Dave absolutely was just trying to get paid more. He made up some stupid rule just to make it be like, oh yeah, you weren't here, so I get paid more. Thank you very much. And it's like, my God, how unfair is this? You are literally there working and doing exactly what you're supposed to do, and despite that, this guy's like, oh yeah, you didn't show up. So it's honestly so satisfying that you did the same thing to him over and over again. And on top of that, you did it silently. Like, you just silently said, okay, I'm gonna be the center referee, and I'm gonna mark you absent every time you're not 30 minutes early. Congratulations and have fun. So truly, the original poster is my hero. I am so proud of what they did, and honestly, they got back at Dave in a spectacular way. Am I the jerk for refusing to attend my sister's wedding or even giving her a gift after she invited my ex to come to the wedding, but specifically excluded my wife. Here's what's going on. Okay, so my sister is getting married in a few weeks. She recently sent out the official invites, and while I was included, my wife was not. When I asked about it, my sister told me the decision was intentional. She said she wants her wedding to be as peaceful as possible, and that she doesn't feel comfortable having my wife there. For a bit of context, my wife and sister have never gotten along particularly well. There's no major incident or explosive history, just mutual dislike and a few passive-aggressive exchanges over the years. That being said, my wife has always been respectful at family gatherings, and I've never seen her act out. What makes this worse, though, is that my ex-girlfriend, who I dated for 4 years before meeting my wife, is invited to the wedding. My sister remained friends with her after we broke up 6 years ago. I didn't love it, but I never made an issue of it. But even still, it's incredibly hurtful to see that my sister would rather include someone from my past, someone I haven't spoken to in years, over the person I've chosen to build a life with. I told my sister that I wasn't comfortable attending under these circumstances, and that I wouldn't be sending a wedding gift either. I said if she doesn't recognize my wife as part of the family, then she shouldn't expect me to play along with the celebration as if everything's just completely fine. She accused me of being petty and trying to punish her for setting boundaries. And even my parents have since called me up to say that I'm overreacting and that I should just go and keep the peace. But to me, this feels like more than a disagreement. It feels like a fundamental lack of respect for my marriage. But the family seems to think I'm making it about me. So seriously, am I the jerk for refusing to attend the wedding, as well as declining to have a gift because of how my wife has been treated? Because right now I'm incredibly pissed off and I don't know what to do. Oh my gosh, this is so toxic. There's no way I would ever show up to that wedding. I think the original poster is completely right. They should not be expected to show up just to make the peace or whatever. That is so toxic, it's not even funny. And it's yeah, you know what? They might be right to some extent where you're making it about you, because they're the ones that made it about your wife. They literally are trying to push her away and be you're invited, but your wife isn't. And if I was in the original poster shoes, I would be okay, well, my wife and I are a package deal, so if she's not going, then I'm not going. So no, you're not the jerk for refusing to go, because honestly, this is such a weird situation, and I don't blame you for stepping away in the slightest. Today, I found out that my partner has been lying to me for 2 years about being allergic to strawberries, because despite the fact that this is my favorite food of all time, and making the effort to cut it out of my diet just to protect her, I'm now learning that all of this was a complete lie, leaving me so confused and unsure of what to do next. Here's how it went down. Okay, so I've been with my partner for 2 years, and very early on, she told me that she was allergic to strawberries. Now, for me, strawberries are my favorite fruit. Genuinely, one of my few foods I both loved and could rely on when I was anxious and struggling to eat. Long story short, she told me that she's allergic and that it could be dangerous if I ate them and then kissed her. So I stopped immediately and completely. I cut out strawberries, anything strawberry flavored, even things like strawberry gum and candy, just to be safe. I didn't question it, because when someone says they have an allergy, you take that seriously. Well, I just found out recently that she isn't actually allergic to them at all, and instead she just doesn't like them. She didn't want me to eat them before kissing her because she simply doesn't like the taste. I know they're just strawberries, and I know this might seem small to some people, but it doesn't feel small to me. It feels like I made a real sacrifice, no matter how minor it might seem, simply out of care and concern. And she let me believe that for 2 whole years. She knows how much I love strawberries. I don't think I could ever imagine asking someone to give up something they love just because I didn't like it, let alone lying to them to get them to do it. Didn't she ever sit there and feel even a little bad watching me crave strawberries and not eat them because of what she said? I just find it so selfish and odd, and at this point, I'm completely speechless. Oh man, your partner is completely toxic and super weird. Lying and saying that you're allergic to it when in reality you're not and you just don't like the taste of it, that really is selfish, especially since it's your favorite food. Dude, that's so dumb. And I'm right there with you. If someone's I have a food allergy or something even close to that, I think to myself, okay, their throat's gonna close up if they eat this or get anywhere near it, so I'm gonna cut that out of my diet completely. So seriously, I don't blame you for being speechless and being wow, this is a huge betrayal of trust, because this really is, in my opinion, a big red flag and something I would never ignore. Am I the jerk for not taking down some yard flamingos after my neighbors complained about it? Because they're demanding I get rid of them, even though I have no intention of taking them down. Here's what's going on. I bought a house a couple years ago, and I've been working on making it look nicer. I spent a lot of time redoing the front gardens and trying to make it neat and nice. A few weeks ago, I was at a greenhouse buying some plants for the garden, and I saw 2 yard flamingos marked down on clearance. And it was right then I thought to myself, yes, these belong in my garden. They're not everybody's cup of tea, but I think they're a lot of fun. I set them up when I got home, and a couple days later, my neighbor was knocking on my door. She was demanding that I take down my my flamingos because they're extremely ugly and they're lowering the property value of the neighborhood. Well, I looked at her and I told her I'm not taking them down because I like them, and the property value isn't going to hurt because of 2 yard flamingos. I also don't live in a homeowners association, and as far as I'm aware, there are no town ordinances about yard flamingos. Well, this neighbor has posted pictures of my house, the street I live on, and a close-up of my flamingos in our town's Facebook group just to complain about them, and some people agreed that I should take them down. After that, another neighbor came over to tell me to get rid of them. Even my own mother also agreed that I should take them down to keep the peace with my neighbor. But here's the thing, I like them. I smile when I see them when I pull into the driveway, so I have no plans to take them down. So with that in mind, I need to know, am I the jerk for not taking down my yard flamingos after some neighbors complained? Because right now, I'm honestly super annoyed. Dude, your neighbors have to be like super bored. Like, who in their right mind would go up to you and be like, oh, you need to take down those yard flamingos. They're just completely lowering the property value of my house and the neighborhood. It's like, dude, no, they're not. They're literally hurting nobody. The best part about this story, in my opinion, is the fact that you don't live in a homeowners association, which, my God, those things can be nightmares. Because if you did live in one, I can guarantee you they would make you take that down like yesterday. So no, I honestly don't think you're the jerk at all. I think this is very harmless, and these people are just super bored because you're not hurting anybody, and honestly, it's not that big of a deal. Am I the jerk for moving someone else's birthday cake out of reach of a spoiled, rotten toddler who was literally sitting there destroying it one scoop of their hand at a time? Because right now, I'm being made to look like the bad guy, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I was just at my girlfriend's mom's birthday party. We had ordered an expensive cake for her and split the cost 3 ways with her sisters. Her brother, who by the way never contributes to any of the shared presents, brought with him his spoiled 2-year-old kid. While everyone was singing happy birthday, the kid started sticking his hands into the cake and licking them, and picking off all the decorations. I looked around in shock, but her brother and his wife were just smiling at this, as if it was the absolute cutest thing ever, and everyone else was just totally unfazed and said nothing. So I bit my tongue and I didn't say anything either, but I did reach over and move the cake a few inches out of reach for the kid. Well, immediately the kid started thrashing around and screaming like crazy, and it was then that everyone glared at me like I was the most evil piece of garbage on earth for doing what I did, and rushed over to placate the kid. Aw, you poor thing, it's okay. They then turned around and gave him more cake. But you know what? I doubled down and I calmly and rationally said that what the kid was doing was incredibly unhygienic. It wasn't his birthday cake, and he's old enough to be taught to wait literally 1 minute until he gets a slice of cake, instead of destroying someone else's birthday cake and covering it with germs. Well, now I'm being made out to be a huge jerk for doing or saying this, and apparently I ruined the birthday party. Considering it's the entire family's reaction, it's making me start to question whether or not I am just a grumpy jerk or not. So truly, I need to know if I'm at fault here, because right now I don't know what to do. Oh man, this is so strange. Like, I just can't understand anyone who's like, oh my God, my kid should have been allowed to stick his hands in the cake. You know, the cake that you paid for. How dare you try and keep it away from him? Like, dude, what are you talking about right now? That's an expensive cake they bought, and the brother didn't even help pay for it. Like, are you kidding me? Why is nobody correcting this brat and being like, get your hands out of the cake, stand in the corner or something, some kind of punishment? Why are you suddenly the bad guy for being like, no, you can't do that? Because trust me, these people are going to be raising an absolute nightmare in like, let alone 4 years. Like, that kid's going to run that house pretty much the rest of their life if they don't do something right now. Like, just look at the way they acted when the kids started throwing a temper tantrum. They're like, oh, you poor little thing, here, have more cake that you destroyed. It's like, oh my God, are these people serious right now? Like, you can't do that. You're telling the kid that no, there's no consequences for destroying something that isn't yours. And that, dude, I can't. I literally can't. That is so annoying to me. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. You are not the crazy one here. And I think your extended family's at fault for the way that they're treating you. Am I the jerk for refusing to let someone else check my phone after a coworker falsely accused me of taking pictures of her? Because they say that if I have nothing to hide, then I should have no problem showing my photos. But I still said no, and now I'm incredibly pissed off, and I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. To start things out, this is a throwaway account. So this happened at work. I'm an 18-year-old male, and I was on my stuff normally, scrolling through my phone and watching YouTube videos, when a coworker suddenly accused me of taking pictures of her. And when she said that, that really caught me off guard. I then told her that I hadn't taken any photos and that I was just watching videos on YouTube. But she didn't believe me and started getting louder and kind of annoying, drawing attention from nearby coworkers. She then said to me that if I have nothing to hide, then I should just show her my photos. Luckily, the manager was nearby and came over because of the commotion. We then both explained our sides. The manager then said that if I wasn't hiding anything, then I could just show the last 2 photos on my phone to clear it up quickly. But here's the thing, I have a lot to hide that I didn't want to show. And this this is nothing illegal, creepy, or weird, and definitely nothing involving her. But still, it's private stuff that I don't want anyone else seeing. So you know what? I refused. I told my manager I was willing to prove my innocence in other ways, but I didn't want to compromise my privacy. As a good faith gesture, I showed my phone's battery usage stats, which clearly show that I haven't used the camera app recently. I also suggested to check the security footage itself. After reviewing the footage, it showed my phone was pointed at the ground the entire time, and the angle wouldn't have even allowed me to take a picture of her. So I was completely cleared. But even so, a few of my coworkers later told me that I should have just shown the photos, because according to them, she had the right to know that she wasn't having her picture taken. But I told them that the evidence proved my innocence, and there was absolutely no need to show anything, specifically not to her, someone who I've never trusted. So am I the jerk for trying to maintain my privacy? Because right now I'm still very pissed off. Oh my gosh, I would lose my mind over this. There's no way I would sit down and take this for a second. You mean to tell me that your manager and a coworker, as well as other coworkers, are trying to be like, you should just show your photos. It's not that big of a deal. If you have nothing to hide, then why won't you show it? No, that's not how it works at all. You have a right to privacy. You're under no obligation, in my opinion, to show your phone to anybody. And I think even speaking generally, don't police officers need a warrant just to look through your phone? So where does this one coworker and everybody else get this weird authority all of a sudden to be hand over your phone, prove your innocence? Because quite literally, the security footage already cleared you out, with your phone's battery usage completely clearing you of any accusation, which by the way is a good idea. That's something anyone should hold on to, because I didn't think about that, and the original poster is really smart to do that. Because what's going on right now? Your coworker literally falsely accused you of something that you didn't do. And in my opinion, it doesn't matter what photos were in there that you didn't want them to see. The main takeaway that I really stand by is that it's nobody else's business and you have a right to privacy. So no, you are definitely not the jerk for taking a stand. An entitled old jerk breaks into my house and begins to rifle through my belongings, demanding to speak with someone who definitely does not live at my place. Things got so bad that I told this guy that if he didn't get out of my house, I would be getting the police involved. And to this day, I'm still blown away by this crazy old man. Here's what happened. So for some context, we're in the United Kingdom. This happened about a year ago now, but I still think about this really frequently because as much as it's a pain in the butt to perpetually lock and unlock the door for the postman or for deliveries, I still think it's worth it based on this one interaction alone. A couple weeks prior, a friend of mine left a couple of items at our place and had messaged me the night before to say that he was going to cycle down the next morning to pick these bits up. Amongst our friend group, we have frequently relied on going out to look after each other, so it had been pretty common to do one or two loud knocks on the front door, then just walk into each other's houses. It was no big deal. We did it all the time, and none of us have anything in our hallways or our living rooms that we could walk in on, and we only ever did it if the other party knew we were coming. The friend I was expecting to come over the next morning is an early bird, and he knows I work from home from 9 o'clock in the morning, so he'd have to be here before then to grab his things. Well, at about 8 o'clock in the morning, I hear the front door open and slam shut, and I call down jokingly by saying, "Hey, careful with the door." I turn the corner and I'm still half asleep. It's still an hour before I need to be awake, so there's definitely no coffee in my system. And it's then that I suddenly see someone in cycling gear, facing away from me and standing in my living room. He's looking through a box of stuff we were taking to a charity shop later in the week. I say to him, "When did you get the new cycling gear?" And a man, probably in his early to mid-60s, turns around and looks shocked. I ask him, "Who are you?" To which he responds by saying, "Where's Liz?" Now, I am super confused by this. I don't know a Liz, so I ask him again. All the while, I'm being painfully polite since we're both British, and having worked in customer service for years, I just say to him, "I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. Can you please tell me who you are?" He then repeats in a more angry tone, "Where is Liz?" And I say to him, "I don't know who that is. I don't even know who you are. Please get out of my house now." His eyes flare like he's suddenly furious at how rude I am to point out he's just randomly broken into my house, while also going through all of my stuff. He then says to me, "Tell me where Liz is right now." I walk to the front door and I open it. I say, "Get out now before I call the police." And when I say this, he just stares at me. So I say it again, "Get out of my house or I'll call the police." He thinks for maybe 5 seconds, which felt a lot longer at the time, before stomping out like a toddler and wrenching the front door handle out of my hand from the other side to slam it, presumably as hard as he could. I sit on the stairs to kind of decompress and come to terms with what just happened when the front door flies open again, banging on the wall. He begins to say to me with a quiet, burning fury, "You know what? Before I go, I've got a few things to say. And you know what? I don't know what he was going to say because I roared at him to get out and never return, or there will be consequences not involving the police. Well, after I said that, he bolted, but not before riding past my house on his bike a few more times over the next 5 or so minutes, all as I watched from the upstairs window. The whole situation freaked me out a bit, an unlocked door being a protection from the outside by social formality alone, and when people no longer apply the rules, it's no defense at all. Once he was gone, I was fine, but the fact that we keep our doors locked at all times now, even when we're both in the house, has kinda spoiled the group care dynamic of being able to pop in to check on each other. My best guess is either he had the wrong address or the previous tenants had beef with this guy, but he was objectively in the wrong from the very start and still acted like he was entitled to do these things, and then got aggressive once it was pointed out and acted like a bratty toddler. Now, I can't be certain for obvious reasons, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't dementia. I've had a number of relatives that had it, and whilst I know it presents in different ways in different people, this guy was way too lucid and way too dexterous. Before his very intimidating spandex ride-by, he was rolling his bike down the drive and clipping into the pedals with those very special shoes whilst looking over his shoulder at me in the window. So dementia is really unlikely, but I'm not an expert. And for the record, we do lock our door overnight, or if we're like out for long periods of time. But during the day, it was just convenient to leave it open. We live in a very small community that's generally very friendly, so we just didn't think much of it. And I think that's why this shook me up so much. It's one of those moments where you think to yourself, wow, welcome to the real world. Our friends also now have keys to our place and we have keys to theirs. So the dynamic has been kind of maintained in some degree, but it's still a sour reminder every time I'm having to go through a key just to get to their house. Wow, that is a crazy situation because I don't know how I would react if someone just walked into my house. Not to mention that he's like screaming all over the place, "Where's Liz?" Like that literally just doesn't make any sense, and there's just no reason for him to be acting that way. And I'm gonna be completely honest, as an American, this guy should count his lucky stars that he did this in the United Kingdom and not in a place like America where we would not handle that very well. There are some people who are like begging to have someone break into their house, where they're like, oh yay, I get to use my self-defense device, if you know what I mean. Like that really would not go well for him at all. So while it does suck that you have to start locking your door, I do have to agree with the original poster that yeah, this is kind of a taste of reality. Because you know what, despite how safe you may feel in your neighborhood, there are still some people that are absolutely insane. And in my opinion, I would rather just lock my front door instead of risking it and dealing with another crazy old man breaking into my house. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled mother gives me a panic attack, all because I asked her kid to stop running around the store. And after this interaction with this awful woman, I seriously hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So I work at a secondhand shop, and we get a lot of people who come in with their kids. Obviously, kids are gonna be in public, but more often than not, the kids are rowdy and use our store as a playground. And this story is just like that. So this happened a few hours ago, and a boy who's maybe about 10 years old was running up and down our aisle between our shoes and our women's jackets. It is kind of a small aisle, and it usually is the most busy. So I called out and I said, hey, no running please. Not even 5 seconds pass and he does it again. Thinking maybe he didn't hear me, I said a little bit louder, buddy, no running please. Well, this is when our entitled mother of the story steps in. She comes out of seemingly nowhere. We have toppers that sit on the top of the racks of the clothing, most of which have pillows that make a clear view impossible, which was the case here. The entitled mother, while walking into view, yelled at me and said, I've got it. Don't you see I'm talking to him? Now, I felt my face turn red from embarrassment, and I muttered to no one in particular that I didn't see her. The entitled mother was going on to the man shopping with her about how someone was trying to parent someone else's child, and she was saying this right as she reached the register. Well, inside the store was also a nice lady, and she walked up next to me looking at the clothes that I was fixing and said to me that I did nothing wrong, even telling me that he was throwing stuff around the back. And when she said that, I started to tear up at her reinforcing that I was just doing my job. I grew up in an awful house where I wasn't really told that I didn't deserve to be yelled at, so it is always refreshing when someone reminds me. The entitled mother hears this and says, if you have something to say to me, say it to me. The nice lady then responds by saying I was asking them about the color of the day. At this point, I began crying. The beginning stages stages of a panic attack seizing me as the two began to go back and forth. There were two ladies on the other side of the rack that I was working on who didn't speak English but tried to help by reaching out for my hand and reminding me to breathe. I heard a little bit of their exchange, but was a little focused on trying to convince my body that air actually was entering my lungs. The nice lady walked towards the same register as the entitled mother, and the little bit I caught roughly goes like this. The nice lady was remarking that I'm upset, and the entitled mother said, "I'm recording you, I am recording you." And from what my coworker said later, the nice lady told my coworker to call for one of our managers right away. The nice lady returned to where I was, rubbing my back, and was also trying to remind me to keep breathing. Now, I was hyperventilating at this point, the worst panic attack I've had thus far. You know the old box TVs? The static that would appear on the glass after turning it off, or just look it up on YouTube for TV static? That's what my hands felt like. I couldn't feel my legs and was sure that if I moved, I would fall over. They let me watch the cameras to explain everything to the managers later on, and you can see how red my face was and how panicked my breathing was. My coworker finished ringing up the entitled mom and her family, and they very quickly left the store. He appeared a few feet away from me, trying to see what he could do to help. Our manager did the same, having not been clued in yet. The nice lady said to my manager, "That lady needs to be banned." I'm not sure what exactly she said after that, because this was when I discovered that I was so deep in a panic attack that I couldn't even speak. I somehow managed to get out the words, "I'm having a panic attack." My coworker ended up helping me walk to the back and to the break room. He sat me in one of the chairs and stayed with me until I could talk. He even went to get my water from my own register. My hands were shaking like a leaf and my teeth started chattering as I tried to slow my breathing and compare stories with him. He went back out on the floor and I took a few minutes. I relayed everything that I caught and that my coworker had told me to both managers on duty, and the three of us watched the cameras where I gave them a kind of play-by-play of what happened. Everyone, my managers, coworkers, and customers, all agreed that the entitled mother was a jerk and a grunt and should have been parenting her child instead of letting him run around the store like a hooligan. The nice lady ended up leaving without buying anything because the entitled mother made her so mad, which I feel really bad for because I wanted to thank her. And honestly, with all things considered, I really hope I never have to deal with her ever again. Wow, the behavior of that entitled mom was completely out of line. There's literally no good reason for the way she acted. She could have just watched her kid and not allowed it to like run up and down the aisles, but instead she decided to take it out on you, acting like you're trying to parent her child. It's like, no buddy, I'm just trying to do my job and prevent your stupid kid from throwing more things around the store. So with all things considered, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. I can only imagine how hard that must have been, and hopefully for the sake of your employment at that job, you never have to deal with that lady ever again. An entitled jerk mistakes my security measures for a scam and loses his mind after I was just trying to get his order correct over the phone. And I'm honestly still blown away by how paranoid this guy was acting. Here's what happened. About 10 years ago, I worked phone customer service for a particularly famous New England candle company. As with all customer service jobs, you get some wild stuff, but this story definitely takes the cake. I had a guy call in who had received an email that something he'd ordered on sale had run out of stock, and since the sale was technically over, he was advised to call us if he wanted a replacement item for the sales price. I think they had a few days to do this before the refund automatically processed, and I guess at the time this is just how the candle company handled it. Now, things went fine. He picked out a replacement, I went to process it, and asked for his last four and security code of his credit card to confirm the order. Well, when I asked for this, his tone took a total 180. I mean, I could pretty much hear his scowl over the phone, and he told me he already had his card on file with us. Now, I agreed that he did, but I wanted to verify his last four, and I had no way of seeing his security code at all, and I needed to input it to process the replacement. I politely told him if he needed to step away to grab his card, I would wait, or he could call back and we could resume. Well, when I said that, this guy lost his mind. He started yelling that the phone line wasn't secure and that he knew he was being recorded, which, yeah, he was. The automated recording had advised as such at the start of the call, which is pretty standard procedure for call centers. He wasn't giving up such important information to a stranger, and also, I should have already known it anyways, since he'd saved it on the website, so I should be able to see it. I mean, when he said this, he almost sounded proud of this, like he was standing up to some big bad corporation messing with his money, and not just yelling at a 20-something at a seasonal job trying to replace their stupid candle. I tried to explain that if I could process orders without verifying his card on file, any random could call in, claim to be him, and rack up as much as they wanted on his card. Well, he snarled that no one does that, and I had his permission to process orders under his account without verifying. Now, I was still new and I was a little flustered, so I probably didn't explain myself well as I tried to get him to come around, but eventually he decided the entire thing was a scam, that we, the call center, weren't actually affiliated with this candle company, and he was just a budding victim of fraud. He told me to just process his refund and just forget about it. So I did just that, but he literally did not believe me because it didn't immediately post to his bank account, and he informed me that he was going to call the real candle company just to report that people were using their name to scam him. Well, fast forward and I looked at the call record a little bit later, and I found out that he had in fact called the real candle company again. He got my coworker and swiftly hung up on them when they told him the same thing. And honestly, I just don't know what happened to people like this that seem to make them so paranoid. Yeah, this is so weird to me. I've worked customer service as well as call center jobs like this, so I really know exactly what the original poster is currently going through. Like, this kind of behavior is obnoxious and so frustrating to deal with, because here you are just trying to do your job and process this like new item for them, but they want to sit there and act like someone's tracking their information. It's like, dude, you're probably nobody that anybody is ever going to try and look for. Just give me the numbers that I need so I can process your stupid candle. So I personally find this story super relatable because people who act like this truly are completely delusional. Today, I messed up by thinking that my neighbor's dog was a stray. And now that I got caught trying to lure the dog over to me just to take care of it, I now feel entirely embarrassed and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So we have 5 neighbors bordering my large yard. 3 of them have dogs, as do I, and I know these dogs really well. I did not think the other 2 neighbors had dogs as none of us have fences, and I had only ever seen the dogs that I knew. I was out with my pup this morning doing yard work, and he was hanging out on the porch while I was bringing a wheelbarrow of stuff down to the compost pile. I was daydreaming and not paying attention all the way up until I heard growling. I looked up, and in the middle of our yard was a large breed copper and white dog. We have 4 acres, so while the yard isn't gigantic, it was solidly within our property. His long fur was well groomed and he had a collar, so I knew he hadn't been wandering for long. Since I knew he wasn't one of the neighbor's dogs, I assumed his owners lived in the general vicinity but not right next door, and that he had recently escaped. He stood his ground, barking warning barks at me. My pup came running to investigate the noise, as he thinks that every dog is friendly, and I'm so thankful that the other dogs stayed put, as I told mine to stop approaching. I brought my dog inside, and by the time I returned, the strange dog had wandered onto one of the neighbor's properties. Now, we have a 50-mile-an-hour road a couple houses away that most people go about 60 on. I was worried, and I wanted to help return the dog if I could, but I didn't want to trespass just to do that. So I started calling out key words from the corner of my yard. I would say stuff like, "Do you want to eat? Do you want some food? You want a cookie? How about some treats? You want some treats?" I did ask the dog a couple of times if that was his house, not because I expected an answer, obviously, but because I was trying to make friendly toned small talk with him. So it crossed my mind, but nobody was visibly around, and I didn't really believe it. Then an older gentleman shuffles out of the house, clearly trying to discern what's going on. I call out asking if the dog is his, and he says yes. I say to him, "Oh, okay, he was in my yard and I wanted to make sure he was safe." He asked if the dog was bothering me, and I said no. But you know what? In hindsight, I should have said yes, since I still don't know how the dog will get along with mine. But he was incredibly unimpressed with me, and now I'm just completely embarrassed. Obviously, I know my heart was in the right place, but if I left my house to find someone trying to lure my dog away, I would probably be very upset as well. Honestly, I don't think you did anything wrong. Here you see a strange dog that you've never seen before, and you're just trying to figure out where it came from and why it's sitting there staring at you. Like the dog was barking in your yard and you didn't know whose dog it belonged to. Like if I was in your shoes, I would probably do the same thing. I would try to get the dog to me to see if there's any kind of tags or anything like that, just so I can then try to bring the dog home. So no, in my opinion, I don't think you messed up at all. If anything, I think you did a really good thing for you and your neighborhood. And if your neighbor didn't like the fact that you were looking after his dog, then maybe he should have kept a better eye on him instead of letting him just roam around. Am I the jerk for telling my family to stay out of mine and my wife's room after they've invaded our space consistently for way too long? Because right now, a lot of tension is in my house, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old male, and I live with my wife who's 26 years old. We got married 3 years ago and have been living together ever since then. and we are the only people who live in our home. My parents are both addicted to gambling and lost their car and house to it last month. I also have 3 little siblings, a sister who's 23, and 2 brothers who are 17 and 15. Since they didn't have any place to live anymore, they asked if they could come and live with my wife and I, and she agreed, but I was a little hesitant because I know how they can be. Anyways, they did end up moving in, but the problem is they were way too noisy and keep invading me and my wife's personal space. She's the absolute sweetest, and even though she's visibly really uncomfortable with all of this, she never says anything. Now, my sister isn't really the problem here because she decided to move out for my wife and I's sake. She and my wife are really close too, so she understood. But my brothers are being a menace. They keep touching my books, computer, and any other possible thing they can find. And because the house is so small, they usually spend most of their time in our room. My wife and I have no privacy anymore. In fact, just yesterday, we were all sitting in our room at night, and my wife and I were doing some work when suddenly my brothers opened our drawers and pulled out some private things they had no business looking into, and they then started laughing out loud, looking at me and my wife. Well, my wife got really embarrassed and then left. She said she doesn't want to stay in the house for the night and decided to go to her parents' house, and I'm now worried this might cause a big issue. I yelled at my brothers for their behavior, but my parents came in and said that I was being too proud, all because I have a house, and that I'm treating them too poorly. But here's the thing, I told them once already that I feel uncomfortable with the way they behave. They didn't even scold my brothers and just started a whole fight which went on for the entire night. Well, my wife still doesn't want to come back for a few days, and I'm feeling very scared. I don't want to lose the love of my life to this, but I can't kick my family out either because they have nowhere else to go. Now, trust me, this incident was not the only one. In fact, my mother once walked in on my wife showering because according to her, it's okay because they're both women. My wife didn't like that, but again, she didn't say anything about it either, and I'm now afraid this might cause a strain in our marriage, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first off, you are definitely not the jerk, but secondly, I think it's time for them to move out. The original poster went on to explain that this is literally a house with only 2 bedrooms. There is no space anywhere for anybody, and the fact that the parents and the siblings are not being more considerate of like the space available, or even being considerate of your house in general is honestly mind-blowing to me. Like, that is simply unfair. You let them into your house as a good favor. You're literally just trying to help them out so they don't end up homeless, and then here they are turning around making this into something awful for you. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think for the sake of your wife, it is definitely time to tell them to get out, because they very clearly have overstayed their welcome before they even got settled, and that is something that you absolutely cannot ignore. My entitled Karen of a boss screamed at me that I was lazy on the job after I passed out from exhaustion, and now I'm honestly just so glad I don't work at that job anymore, because that boss truly was the worst thing I've ever dealt with in my life. Here's what happened. Years back, I worked in COVID testing, and we were massively understaffed for the workload. I'm talking like 3 people doing roughly 2,000 tests a day. I was working 6 days a week from 8 in the morning until 2 o'clock in the morning almost every single day, and the earliest I would leave would maybe be 10 o'clock p.m. And on top of that, we would maybe get an hour break somewhere near 4 o'clock p.m. After a few months of this, it started taking a toll on my body. I developed severe nerve pain in my face and tremors down my right side. It got so bad, my father, who lives abroad, demanded that my boyfriend take me to the ER to get checked out because I was so busy I couldn't bring myself to go. And I didn't do it knowing that my boss would lecture me for lost time. Well, I go to the ER and immediately get out in fluids, and I'm given a litany of antidepressant medications, as well as medications for the pain. I was also given Valium with no prescription, and my doctor literally just said, take one, and if you can still feel things, take a second one and see if you can sleep. Well, after that, I go back to my shift at 12 o'clock p.m., completely exhausted, but knowing I was in for a lecture from my boss. As I walk into the lab, my boss screeches at me, grabs me by the shoulder, and told me I was lazy and irresponsible for calling in late, that there was so much work that we needed to do, and that she was docking my hours at the emergency room from my pay. I told her that I was going to finish this shift because I didn't want to leave my team high and dry, but I would need a few days to recover. Well, when I said that, she went red. She said to me, "Your generation is doomed to be lazy, inconsiderate jerks with no respect." She then took my phone from my lab coat, even though I was waiting for a specialist to call me about a possible surgery I might need due to nerve damage, and she said to me, "Your generation acts like children, so I'll treat you like one." She then actually left my phone out unattended at the front desk for about 6 hours, where literally anyone could have taken it. Eventually, I ended up collapsing at around 11:30 p.m. on the job, and she found me and just yelled at me for falling asleep. She said that I had no shame, and even threatened to terminate my healthcare benefits. She actually told me to come into work after my surgery too, and even told me that she hopes my uncle's cancer pulls through because she would not be able to afford to go to a funeral service. Needless to say, I definitely do not work there anymore, and honestly, I hope I never see that lady ever again. Wow, you had an awful boss. She is like the definition of an old entitled Karen who has to go after younger people all because they have, I don't know, medical issues. Like, just because you neglected your health to get where you're at doesn't mean I have to reciprocate it and end up like you. Like, seriously, you went to the emergency room. It's not like you went there just to like mess around. You clearly were not doing well, and your job was obviously taking a toll on your body. Like, how in the world could she not be more understanding of your situation? So honestly, I'm so glad the original poster doesn't work there anymore, because what you just described sounds absolutely atrocious, and you do not deserve to be treated like that in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mom and grandmother decided to get back at the casino they worked at right after they got fired for ridiculous reasons. Here's what happened. Okay, so this story is about my mom and grandmother, and they gave me permission to post it online. Quite a while ago, both my mom and grandmother worked for one of the local casinos. At the time, the casino had a 90-day trial, and then you would get insurance. During the course of them working there during the 90-day trial, the casino switched their policy to an 18-month trial before getting insurance. So they then proceeded to find reasons to fire all of their employees who were coming up on the 90 days, just so they wouldn't be grandfathered in. Now, my mom knew that this was coming because she saw person after person who were hired a little bit before her get fired for ridiculous reasons. So when she got called in the office the day after she had to go to the hospital for a severe allergic reaction, she knew what was coming. They actually marked it as a no-call, no-show because she started having a severe allergic reaction on shift and her EpiPen didn't work. She walks into the office and she's informed that due to her no-call, no-show, she is being let go effective immediately. She asked for her final check and they informed her that she would receive the check after she turned in her uniform. Well, in that moment, my mother proceeded to strip down to her underwear and bra, drop the uniform on the supervisor's desk, and demand her last check. She stood there in her underwear for 40 minutes while they tried to convince her to turn the uniform in at a later date. But she said, "Nope, you said I'd get my check when I turned in my uniform. There, that's my uniform. I want my check." Eventually, they wrote a check, and she then walked out, taking the long route through the casino, saying her goodbyes to all of the staff and regulars on her way out. So, a couple days later, when my grandma had her shift, she knew what to expect because she was coming up on that same time frame. And you know what? My grandma proceeded to do the exact same thing. My grandma literally walked through the crowded casino in her underwear just to prove how ridiculous the management was being. I love everything about this story, and I really think your mom and grandmother are heroes. Like, they did not take that sitting down. They decided to show the casino exactly how angry they are about this whole decision-making process, and with the fact that they are literally just trying to like find reasons to fire people. Like, for starters, the fact that she went to the hospital for a severe allergic reaction, in my opinion, is more than enough reason to be like, yeah, this is why I didn't show up. I was literally trying not to pass away. Sorry that working at the casino doesn't take priority over my health. Like, it's so disgusting that they changed the insurance trial from 90 days to 18 months, because like, seriously, who's ever gonna qualify for that? I know at other jobs I've worked at, 90 days is kind of like the standard procedure of like getting insurance. So to change it suddenly to like a year and a half all of a sudden, and then find reasons to fire literally anybody who's coming close to the 90-day period previously, in my opinion, is super obnoxious. And the fact that your mom and grandma basically protested on their way out is honestly such a funny way to get revenge that honestly this casino absolutely deserved. An annoying customer makes my job a living nightmare as we find him completely intoxicated in the bathroom of our restaurant. And overall, I'm honestly just so sick of dealing with this guy. Here's what happened. I'm a 21-year-old female and I used to supervise a restaurant. There was a guy who I'll call Steve, that's not his real name, who really wasn't problematic until he became a dedicated regular. This guy would plant himself at the bar for hours and asked questions every 2 minutes or so and interrupted staff a lot. He would say stuff like, hey you, do you think I'm a funny guy? Do you like puzzles? And honestly, most questions were harmless, but like, dude, we're trying to work. Anyways, one weekend there was a band and all of the staff were relieved that it was a bit too loud to hear his questions. Now, he always got the same beer and had maybe 2 to 3 beers, but that night he ordered shots of Jägermeister, to which he drank them in his own personal shot glass too. And since we follow the liquor policies, we had no problem serving him. Because it was busy, I had only seen this from a distance, but one minute Steve was chilling at the bar and the next he was gone. For the next 3 hours or so until the restaurant closed, no one had noticed that he left. Steve had left his glasses and shot glass on the bar to save his seat, but the bartender thought he just forgot them and left. At around 1 o'clock in the morning at closing, the security guard came in for their lockup routine, and the doors were all good except for the bathrooms. They knock on the bathroom door and they say, "Excuse me, the restaurant is closed. Please vacate the restroom." Now, typically if someone knocks while you're going to the bathroom, most people would say something, but we heard nothing. Assuming that whomever was in there was needing more time, the security said he would come back in a few. When security came back, they knocked on the door again, and they didn't hear anything until they knocked really hard and said, "Hello, are you in there? Please notify us if you're in need of assistance. The restaurant is closed." Now, the restaurant had many elderly patrons, and we assumed that someone might have fallen or injured themselves, so the security guard looked at me like, what in the world should we do? And it's right then that we heard a groan. Now, of course, we knocked again with the same speech and heard another groan. Thinking it might be a medical emergency, the guard calls for his boss. Right as we're debating whether or not we have just cause to kick the door down, guess who comes out of the bathroom? And yes, you probably guessed right. It's Steve in the bathroom. He strolls up to us, scratching the front of his pants, and had vomit all over his shirt. He was yawning while saying, hey, who's got my glasses? And we all just kind of stared at him when he said that. Steve proceeded to sit back down at the bar as we asked him to leave. Then he put money on the bar and shuffled out in his flip-flops, talking about how he had a great nap in the bathroom. And honestly, I'm so sick of Steve because this guy is extremely annoying. Wow, I'm surprised this guy hasn't gotten banned yet, to be completely honest with you, because not only is he bothering staff and other customers, but also this guy like fell asleep in the bathroom of the restaurant. Like seriously, I think it's time for him to like go home and find some other place to go to, because his behavior, in my opinion, was completely unacceptable. My restaurant job is absolutely awful, and it's currently leaving me thinking about quitting to find another job simply because I'm so fed up with the way I get treated. Here's what happened. So I started working at a pretty nice Italian place, and I worked as a manager at a steakhouse and seafood restaurant for over a decade in the past. Within the first few weeks working there, I noticed a lot of signs that the owners are cheap and they are definitely penny pinchers. For starters, on my nightly checkout and reports, I noticed a few dollars was taken out of my tips every night for a mysterious charge, and they already take out about 5% of the tip pool. But after a few nights, I asked another server, and she said that's how they pay for the computers. I was confused and I asked what she meant. She said that the point of sale system costs money every month to use, and that's how they pay for it. They take some of our tips every single night. My response was to ask if she was serious, but she didn't even seem to find that odd. Another example is that they don't give utensils or napkins on orders that are to go. They say it's to cut back on all of the cost. They set about 4 of these cheap restaurant rags around at the side stations for cleaning, and if you need a new one, you have to go to the office and ask for one. Last week, they implemented a new policy about requesting time off. You can't request a day or 2 days off. You can only request 3 or more days off. If you do just want 1 or 2 days off, you have to wait for the next week's schedule to come out and ask someone to cover your shift for you, which is almost impossible, by the way, because they're open Tuesday through Saturday, and almost everyone works 5 days a week. So if you can't find anyone, you can't get the day off. I was a manager for over a decade, and it's clear to me that they're just trying to get people to not request days off, or they're just too lazy or incompetent to write a schedule. I did it for years and managed to schedule people accordingly. The management said they are doing it this way because they have too many request off slips, and it's hard to keep track of all of them. But honestly, worst of all is the owner themselves. He's this old Peruvian guy who's balding on top and has a ponytail, and he's notorious around town for being an absolute weirdo in the worst possible way. He had to sign the business over to his wife, who's like 30 years younger than him, all because he had so many inappropriate behavior lawsuits, if you know what I mean, where it basically made it more financially viable for it to be under her name. He berates and insults us regularly, but he has learned to pretty much leave me alone because when he does it to me, I just basically look at him in the eye to let him know that I'm not scared of him, which seems to work because he's just a big bully. Now, for example, my second week I was cutting bread and he ran over and said, no, you're cutting it too thick. And I said, oh, you want thinner slices? Okay. He then said, no, not okay. I fire people who say okay. I just look at him and I said, thank you. And then I walked away. Like, what in the world is he talking about? He does stuff like this all the time. Sometimes he can be kind of chill, but you never know when he will fly off the handle and be a jerk. Also, the overall vibe of the employee seems to be a bit off to me. Like they have some kind of superiority complex. My family ran a restaurant for over 20 years, and it definitely wasn't as high class. Think of something more like Red Lobster than anything else. But unfortunately, we had to close it down because Texas Roadhouse bought the lot it was on. We weren't fancy per se, but we served wine and lobster and crab and prime rib, and we were big in the community and we were well loved. On my first day at this place, I was talking to a couple of the waitresses about it, and they were straight up talking trash about my family's business right in front of me. They said to me, yeah, I heard awful things about that place. I went and it was awful. I've only heard awful things. And I said, wow, you talk a lot of garbage for me standing right here. Another time I was talking to the kitchen manager about a meal she hosted for some big shot guest, and I made a joke about how I like to eat Taco Bell, and she said, okay, well, this isn't Taco Bell, and this isn't your family restaurant. We do things much differently here. Now, I'm a pretty laid-back guy, and I generally let things just roll off my back. Plus, I'm only working this job to earn money while I go back to school to get my degree. But the attitude and general atmosphere of the place does grate on me. I'm not crying every night or anything like that, but the thought of my next shift does give me a small amount of anxiety because I feel like I'm entering a somewhat hostile work environment every shift. There are actually some really cool people there, but most of them are just younger staff members, plus the kitchen who barely speaks English. I'm thinking of quitting for a better place though. The tips are all right, but servers only get like 15 to 20 hours a week. So every 2 weeks, my check is only $1,500 or less. So honestly, would you put up with this kind of stuff at a restaurant? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. First off, to answer your question, no, there's no way I would ever put up with that. But also, if I was in your shoes, I definitely would be getting out of there. Like, there's no reason for you to be putting up with that kind of garbage, especially with what you've described. Like, that seriously sounds awful. I would not want to work in that kind of environment. So hopefully you're able to find a better job, because what you literally just described sounds absolutely awful. And in my opinion, you absolutely deserve a much better working environment. My grandparents are so obnoxious about Thanksgiving every single year, as both sets of my grandparents always seem to have conflict over who's coming to their Thanksgiving dinner. And I'm honestly so sick of the drama that I now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So all my life, Thanksgiving was my favorite holiday. Every year we spent the whole of Thanksgiving with my mother's parents. There would be lots of games, some sports that we would play, and a Thanksgiving dinner that simply couldn't be beat. And then, lucky me, I get to spend the next day with my other grandparents for Thanksgiving number 2, where we would eat their leftover turkey at brunch. Now, little did child me know that this holiday would be embroiled in decades of family politics and conflict. So, gather round as I tell you the insane history, and you can understand how now, even 7 months in advance of next Thanksgiving, it's all about to fall apart. Strap in, because this is kind of a long story. To make it easier for all of you to follow, I'm going to call my maternal grandparents Matilda and Matthew, and my paternal grandparents Patricia and Patrick. And no, these are not their real names. Now, the status quo I described above is the result of an unsteady peace treaty between two warring factions. To be clear, this was the contract. Thanksgiving would be held at Grandma Matilda and Grandpa Matthew's house, with Thanksgiving 2 at Grandma Patricia and Grandpa Patrick's house. And Patricia and Patrick would also get to host the first night of Passover in the spring. This way, everyone was happy. Now, how did we get this way? Well, in the beginning, when my parents got married, they used to alternate. One year it would be at Matilda and Matthew's house, and Passover would be at Patricia and Patrick's house. Then the next year they'd flip. And this was a perfectly reasonable compromise that made everybody angry for some reason. And by everybody, I mean all the grandparents. And I guess that both sides just wanted it all for themselves. The first inflection point came when great-grandma Pamela passed away, and great-grandma Pamela is Patricia's mother. Patricia, rather understandably, really wanted to host Thanksgiving that year, just to have the whole family close. And so, my parents went there instead. Mind you, this was all before I was born. To my knowledge, Matilda and Matthew were okay with this, but the problem came the following year. Patricia and Patrick still expected to host Thanksgiving because according to them, it's their year, isn't it? Unsurprisingly, that argument went over like a lead balloon. My parents then proposed the second reasonable compromise that made nobody happy. The grandparents can trade years hosting, but the other set of grandparents would be invited. This worked for exactly 1 year. The year following great-grandma Pamela's death, Thanksgiving was hosted at Grandma Matilda and Grandpa Matthew's, and Patricia and Pamela went there as well. And by the way, it's not like these people don't get along together or anything like that. They just happen to be completely insane in inconvenient and incompatible ways. The following year, my father asked Grandpa Patrick to invite Matilda and Matthew and was flat out told that no, that's not going to happen because there's not enough room. Now, on the one hand, Patrick and Patricia live in a New York City apartment, so space is legitimately limited. But on the other hand, like seriously, are you kidding me? So my father told him either invite them or we as a family wouldn't come. And the answer was still no. So that is how we arrived at the accord that I described earlier. But in contrast, this one stuck. It lasted for over 2 decades and throughout the entirety of my life until Grandpa Patrick passed away in 2011. Grandma Patricia, again completely reasonably, wanted the whole family together and asked my parents if we could do Thanksgiving at her house that year. Only this time, Grandma Matilda put her foot down. Now, I should explain a little bit about Matilda. Thanksgiving had become, after 25 years, her special holiday. It was the largest gathering that side of the family held every year, and it was and is very important to her. She also didn't have a whole lot of sympathy for Grandma Patricia, in part because of prior shenanigans and because she got Passover every year, but also because she gets Thanksgiving too every year. So, according to her, it's not like Patricia won't get to see us. It's been well known in my family that Thanksgiving at Matilda's is non-optional, and my parents were told that no exception would be made for Patrick's death. My parents, very torn to this point, made the decision that we would honor the terms of agreement and spent Thanksgiving at Matilda and Matthew's place. And I'm told that Grandma Patricia has never forgiven them for this. And so for the past decade, that's how things stood and everyone was kind of happy except for my parents. For one thing, getting to Matilda and Matthew's house on Thanksgiving is a pretty big pain in the butt. With Thanksgiving traffic, it's about 2 hours each way. Also, the guest list at Thanksgiving includes some branches of the family they don't get along with. And the guest list has to be the same every single year because that's simply the way that it has to be. Lastly, my parents would very much like to host some family events themselves every once in a while. Honestly, the whole situation has become very exhausting for my parents, who basically never get to enjoy the holidays anymore and haven't for years. These concerns have been raised, they have been considered, and promptly ignored. Now, Grandpa Matthew is getting older and rather unwell, and we are now worried that he may not be physically or mentally capable to keep hosting Thanksgiving. This and many other reasons has led to rampant speculation over the past few years as to whether the mandatory traditions would finally end. But just the other day, Grandma Matilda made it clear to my mother, as long as they're living in their house, they will keep hosting Thanksgiving. As an aside, that's a lovely intersection with a separate argument because my mother wants Matilda and Matthew to move closer to any of their adult children for their own well-being. This finally brings us to the present day. My parents have decided that they will not be attending Thanksgiving at either grandparent's house. They are either going to host for themselves and invite any family members brave enough to join them, or go down to Florida to visit my sister, who's been doing a PhD program there and is barely able to visit home once a year. None of the grandparents know this yet, and when this decision is announced, it's going to be a nightmare. So I have a few questions that I'm kind of wanting to get answered. Do my parents just go the scorched earth route of hosting for themselves, or should they use my sister as an excuse and go visit her? And also, which family members do they invite? What should my various aunts and uncles on both sides of the family do? They want to have all these details ironed out in advance just so they can present a united front. Also, what should I and my partner do? My parents told me that we have their blessing to do Thanksgiving however we want this year. So I mean, do we just go with my parents? Do we go to Grandma Matilda and Grandpa Matthews anyways? Or do we go to my partner's house for the first time in the 5 years that we've been together? What should I do? Wow, this is seriously some crazy drama that's going on right now. For starters, this contention over Thanksgiving of all holidays is like really weird to me. Thanksgiving has always just been like this precursor to Christmas for me, and it's not really a holiday that I ever take super seriously. So all this drama between your grandparents, in my opinion, is really funny. But more to the point, I think it's important for you to remember that you and your partner have the freedom to do whatever you want. If you want to go literally anywhere else for Thanksgiving, then you absolutely can do that. This drama sounds obnoxious to deal with, and it sounds like there's some politics in the family that I would try to steer clear from. So hopefully this all works out for you, and hopefully your grandparents understand where everyone's coming from. Because honestly, from the sounds of it, it seems like they're going to be offended pretty much no matter what. And in my opinion, that is not your fault in the slightest. My entitled friend gets kicked out of our friend group after she uses me all because of my family's wealth. And now after she spent over $45,000 of my money, also she could buy stuff that she wanted, we finally hit a breaking point where she was kicked out of our friend group, claiming that I'm the reason she spent all that money. But right now, I'm honestly feeling guilty about the whole situation, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start off for some background, I come from a very influential and wealthy family. My grandparents were self-made millionaires, and my parents quadrupled the family wealth by the time I was even born. Thus, I grew up in a very different world than most people. When you grow up in a situation like mine, you develop certain habits that are different from most people. Now, having grown up around a lot of affluent children and going to very elite private schools as I grew up, I mean, my parents traveled a lot, so I'd always be moving around with private tutors, filling in where needed. I was never really in one place for too long. So I developed depression as a result of this lifestyle. Eventually, I talked with my parents and I decided to move to a public high school. I was just so desperate for actual friends that I could connect with, and I hoped if I separated myself from that bubble, I could make some real friends. And this is how I met the first actual friends I've ever made. They were already an integrated group of friends by the time I transferred to the school, but one of the guys, who we will call Mark as a fake name, is really into cars just like I was, and so he was the first person to actually approach me on my first day to talk. And trust me, we hit it off immediately. He introduced me to his friends and I hit it off with basically all of them, and it was amazing. I connected to these people like I had never connected to anyone my age in my life. For the first time in my life, I felt cared about and understood for something deeper than my last name or my family's wealth. As sort of a byproduct of this, I became very generous with all of them. I'd always cover bills and buy gifts for my friends. For their birthdays and other important events, I'd go all out. I've always been someone who loves giving to people and seeing them happy and enjoying what I did or got for them. But one girl in the group, who we will call Sarah, was very happy to receive gifts, which was the whole point of me giving them, so I never minded how she reacted. But Sarah was taken very quickly by the idea of having a rich, close friend. Whenever there'd be a situation where there would be a bill or payment to be made and I was around, she would always make a pretend joke about how lucky they all are that I'm friends with them. Or if we're out to eat and the server took the bill, my friends always offered to cover their parts or split with me, but I'd always just wave it off as my treat. Without my noticing, others in the friend group began taking note of Sarah's actions. And this was all told to me before things really started to hit the fan. They would take it upon themselves to sort of curb Sarah's actions by distracting her, or outright just telling her to stop asking me for things. Apparently, she would react to these rebukes with childish defensiveness about how I never minded and I would just get whatever it was for her. The entitled acting continued to get more outright as time went on. Like, we'd be walking around a mall as a group, talking and laughing amongst each other, and out of nowhere, Sarah would run up with a bag or whatever she had and be like, "Oh, can I get this? It's so cute. I've wanted this for so long." And she would look at me beseechingly, and me, being the honestly naive person that I was, would always just say yes. Sometimes the awkward or abruptness of the situation would even hit me and I'd be just a little bit confused. Like, I could be in a full-depth conversation with my friends about something and genuinely enjoying our time, and I would then hear Sarah just shout out about wanting something or shoving something under my nose out of nowhere and asking for it. Now, this was unknown to me, but several of my friends really began to resent Sarah for the way she was treating me. They saw it as her treating me like a bank account and taking advantage of our friendship for material gain. Towards the final third of the school year, when I truly became an irreplaceable and loved member of the group, my friends would give me hints and little talks. They would say stuff like, "You do know you don't have to buy us anything for us to be your friend, right?" I very stringently reassured them that I knew our friendship wasn't contingent on any monetary purpose, but I still teared up at their thoughtfulness. Now, a lot of this comes from them after the situation, but my friends would always reciprocate with thoughtful gifts. For example, one of my closest friends, who I actually have started dating, is an aspiring pianist and a beautiful singer, and they composed an original song for me all from scratch scratch from my birthday. On my birthday, my friend surprised me with personalized gifts, which was the first time anyone has ever done that. However, Sarah didn't give me anything, arguing that I already had enough. This sparked a heated argument where my friends defended me and criticized Sarah for not considering the gesture of giving. Despite my insistence that I didn't expect anything, the situation escalated. Sarah felt attacked for highlighting the privilege involved in expecting gifts, which left me feeling really guilty. However, my friends reassured me they gave it out of love, leading to a heartfelt resolution with a group hug. But that all came crashing down as the big explosion of this friend group happens next. As the school year neared its end, I decided to treat all of my friends to an extravagant vacation to one of my family's properties. My goal was to create an experience they would cherish forever. When I announced the invitation, their reactions ranged from shock to overwhelming excitement and gratitude, and trust me, I spared no expense, taking the entire group shopping just to ensure that they had everything they could possibly need for the trip. I'm talking swimsuits, outfits for going out, and much more. Despite their attempts to be mindful of expenses, I insisted on indulging with them, often encouraging them to choose more than they initially intended. Sarah, in particular, embraced this opportunity to splurge, spending significantly more than the others. On the day of departure, I arranged for each of them to be picked up from their homes in separate cars. I ensured the family's biggest aircraft was the one used, and I made it clear that they wouldn't have to spend a single penny. I wanted to cover everything as a gesture of my appreciation for their friendship. Sarah, meanwhile, ruthlessly bragged all over social media, taking selfies with anything expensive she got her hands on. When we landed, I surprised everyone with their own individual credit cards for all the personal expenses and vacation spending. If they wanted to hit the shopping district for souvenirs, or really anything, I made it clear they could get whatever they wanted. I really spoiled them absolutely rotten. Now, not to get into the minutia of the vacation itself, but we had an amazing time. It was actually during this vacation that the friend who had a crush on me for most of the year finally confessed their feelings to me, and we began dating. And he is the single most amazing person I've ever met. All in all, it was collectively one of the best summers of my life, and everyone else said as much themselves. It brought us all closer as a found family, and I decided to stay for my final year of high school with them, now with my best boyfriend anyone could ask for. A couple of weeks after returning from vacation, I got a call from one of our family accountants, and it turns out that Sarah had kept the credit card instead of handing it back like she was supposed to. And when she came back to the United States, not only had she continued to use it, but she had racked up almost $45,000 in charges. I was at my boyfriend's at the time when I got the call, and my God, if you could have seen the look on his face when he heard the details. And his mom, who definitely became a second mom to me, went absolutely insane when my boyfriend dragged me to her and explained. They both had to basically stage a mini intervention with me when I started to make excuses about Sarah, saying how I can afford the charges and maybe she really does need the money. Now, please try to understand. Growing up, I had never been taken advantage of in this specific way. I was used to this attitude where you would one-up each other and this elitist connection building fake friendships and all this other stuff. The idea of a friend doing this to me was something I had no experience with. My boyfriend ended up calling over every member of our little family except for Sarah and explained exactly what she was doing, and everyone basically exploded. It was Mark who first voiced essentially that this has to end right now, and this mini intervention turned into a big-scale intervention. It lasted hours. They kind of broke me apart by explaining how basically everything Sarah was doing to me was seriously a one-sided thing. I couldn't accept that someone that I had come to love despite everything would do that to me when I would have done anything for her. My friends had to go to a bit of a tough love situation on me and harshly spell out what she was doing. They showed me my own text conversations with her and showed me how often Sarah was asking me for money or for a gift or some kind of item, and how she would use my emotions against me to make sure I never said no. By the end of it, I was a sobbing mess. I felt so betrayed and stupid. I kept blaming myself for enabling her, and maybe if I'd been more strict with not letting her just get whatever she wanted, she wouldn't have taken advantage of me and bought so many things. My friends really came through in not letting me make excuses for her, and they ultimately decided together that due to the way Sarah had been treating me, they were going to cut her out of our group, and I was shocked that they would do such a thing for me. They had only known me at a year by that point and had apparently known Sarah since about first grade, but apparently, according to their view, not mine, I had been a much more genuine friend and given them such joy and happy memories in just that 1 year than Sarah had given them their entire friendship with her. So basically, they chose me. But that positive cloud soon ended. Sarah was invited to one of the other friends' house, and they laid into her just absolutely no mercy. They went over every aspect of how her way of treating me was horrible, and my boyfriend was especially ruthless. He had compiled a literal pile of receipts and copies of posts, as well as several text threads, as if he was going to court for me. Sarah was defensive from the beginning and had ready-made excuses for everything. Basically, she just blamed me for it. She said it was unfair because she asked for things and I just said yes, which made me feel guilty because the fact of the matter is I did. When she would express that she wanted something, I'd always jump in and offer to buy it for her. But they were just as frank right back at her. They told her that they had had private conversations with her about constantly coming to me asking for things because they knew I would say yes. They apparently repeatedly told her to stop doing it because they saw it as taking advantage of my nature of wanting to give and give. They claimed she knowingly took advantage of my nature, that she knew it was how I was and specifically used it to get what she wanted. She argued that I had come into their lives and would buy them, but she meant herself, such expensive things all the time whenever they, or rather she, expressed it, and that she thought it made me happy to buy her things. She argued that she was doing me a favor by giving me an outlet to do so, which I mean is fair, right? It did make me happy to buy my friends things, I mean all of them, including Sarah. Seeing the happiness from giving is really what makes me happiest. I do have my own personal interests like super fast cars and watches, but my favorite thing to do with my money has always been to buy gifts to give to other people. So I can really see why Sarah would feel like she was helping me by giving me a constant opportunity to get her things because it made me happy. But my friends strongly argued against that. They said that Sarah never showed any real appreciation for me, nor ever gave me anything in return. She was always only ever happy for the thing I got her, and her thanking me was apparently very fake and fleeting. They brought up how she didn't even bother to put together something of a birthday gift for me, while I got a $15,000 purse for hers, to which she brandished the text thread to their faces, where she got me reassuring her that she doesn't have to get me any gifts. Now, my boyfriend was like a growling jungle cat by this point, shouting about how I was saying that because I had never been given genuine, thoughtful gifts before they gave them to me, and that those text messages were blatantly manipulating me into granting her a free pass to never have to reciprocate any generosity by me. Now, in this moment, I felt both so loved and defended, but also so wrenched and guilty. This was my family basically, and I consider them truly like my family, and they were ruthlessly defending me to the hilt. My boyfriend was almost climbing the walls in passion for how Sarah had been treating me, but at the same time, I was basically a homewrecker. I felt like I was breaking up a family because I was too naive, and I didn't have any ability to set any boundaries. They had been close for years, and here I was just coming in and splitting it up. At the end of the very long summary of the entire year of her behavior, the stolen credit card finally came up. When the words credit card were said, Sarah's face was chalk white. First, she tried to deny it by saying, "Oh, it could have been anyone. You gave credit cards to like 14 of us," which I just explained the basic information that every credit card was unique and traceable, and that it's literally on record which one was assigned to whom. For the first time, I really entered the situation to talk to Sarah, and I just quietly asked her the following: "Do you even realize the magnitude of what you did? What you did is literally credit card fraud and theft. If my parents found out about this, they'd make sure our lawyers had you jailed." And seriously, I was not trying to gloat or be triumphant. I was just scared and very worried for her. She was so lucky that it was me she did this to, because I know and have met many people who would have had her in a cell faster than you can say credit fraud. Now, I expected and slightly hoped for some remorse or an apology or even something, but all she did was panic and start shouting about how it would be completely unfair and evil to do that because I gave her the credit card, and how was she supposed to know that she wasn't allowed to keep it? So in the end, I just tiredly told her I would clear the outstanding balance and she would not have to face any consequences. She could even keep whatever she bought with my money, but she just has to return the card. She gave back the card in a sullen attitude, like I was being mean by ruining her fun or something like that. I just held the card and leaned into my boyfriend exhausted, as the group explained that Sarah was no longer any of their friends. Well, that started up Sarah on a whole screaming tantrum about how it's my fault for all of this, blaming me for giving her permission to do what she did and then taking it back and playing the victim. My boyfriend and Mark frog marched her out of the house, and we spent the rest of the day just decompressing. And I asked them over and over again if they were absolutely sure that they wanted Sarah cut out and me to basically take her place. They smiled, and my boyfriend was like, "Listen, you're being silly," and told me picking me was the easiest choice they'd ever made. Now, it's been quite a while since that whole ordeal, and I'm now in my senior year. It's going great, other than Sarah trying to frame me for cheating on my boyfriend and very nearly splitting us up, which is a whole different story. But I still feel guilty whenever I think about this. Sarah's words about how I basically ruined years worth of friendship over just money has definitely made me doubt myself. Wow, this is a crazy roller coaster of a ride. First of all, Sarah is an awful friend. This is a terrible person through and through. She used you and got away with getting what, $45,000 worth of stuff? Like, that is credit card fraud. You are 100% right. Like, she literally kept the credit card that was meant for vacation and was like, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna use this for everything." Not to mention her behavior where she's like, "Ooh, I wanna buy everything." Like, she literally only wanted you around because you were rich. And that is in stark contrast with all of your other friends. Because it really does seem like your other friends really do care about you. So for her to go around and be like, "Oh man, you're gonna buy me all this stuff, right?" Like, that is insane to me. And yes, she absolutely should have been kicked out. Like, trust me when I say this is not someone you're gonna miss. And it's not someone you're gonna want around your friends anyways. Like, the rest of your friends all love you because of you, and not because of your money or any other extenuating circumstance. They're not going around being like, "Oh yeah, what are you gonna buy for me next?" Like, none of them have done that, and they've even been like, "Wait, no, I'll pay for my portion of the meal." Or they've even like stepped up and said, "Oh no, I can buy this for myself." Like, there isn't this automatic expectation from everybody else that you're gonna pay for everything. And that, in my opinion, especially considering your situation where your family is like really loaded, that's a wonderful sign that yes, they do care about you. And Sarah is not one of those people, because when she looked at you, she only saw dollar signs. She did not see a human being with needs or wants or desires, and she just straight up didn't care about you at all. Like, she didn't even get you anything for your birthday. Like, what an idiot. Sure, you're gonna say, "Oh, I don't want anything for my birthday," but any real friend would ignore that and be like, "Yeah, I'm gonna get you something anyways." So yes, you made the right decision by getting that lady out of your friend group, because God knows how much more money she could have spent out of your wallet. And I think you're 100% right. I think your former friend definitely got off lucky, because if this was anybody else, I'm convinced that they absolutely would have put her straight in jail. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for leaving my husband at our lake house with his family, who invited themselves over without asking me or anybody first? Because right now we are both very upset with each other, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my husband and I own a lake house that we spend most of our free time at when it's warm. We go there over the winter to check on it and do any basic maintenance that is required, so it's not really set up for any winter living. We often invite friends and family over, and we have almost 2 acres of land, and there is a lot of room to park an RV or set up a tent. The house has a septic tank for the toilet. All the other water goes to a gray water tank that we use for gardening and the lawn. We only use biosafe products, and we have a very well-built and ventilated outhouse for when we have people over. So last weekend was the one where we went out to get the house ready for the spring and summer, and we ordered the water truck to fill our tanks and the propane guys to fill up that tank. We ran water through the pipes to flush them out and get them ready for use. And right as we're doing that, his mom and dad showed up with his brother and his family, which honestly would have been fine, except it was a cold and awful weekend. So they didn't want to set up tents and stay outside. I asked him why they were here, and he said that he told them we were going out, and they sort of just invited themselves out. They didn't bring out much besides sandwiches and a bunch of beer, and they didn't understand why we didn't have any water toys ready. But like, seriously, there's still ice on the lake. I asked my husband to tell them that we're not ready for any guest and that they need to leave or at least help us out, but he simply wouldn't do it. So, being frustrated and a little bit upset, I decided to leave. I said I needed to run to the store, and I took my car to the grocery store 5 blocks from my house. And this is an Asian market with some fantastic sushi. I think my husband expected me to just be going to the gas station like a mile from the lake, but that is definitely not what happened. I left him out there to prep the house and deal with all these people, and he's now upset that I left without telling him, and that I also was not coming back, that he had to do all the work by himself, and that he had to clean the house all by himself. He said his family thought I was rude not to stick around and host them. But here's the thing, I did not invite them. I told them that the house was not ready for anyone to be there. I told them that we did not have enough toilet paper for 8 people. And he knew that we only had food for the 2 of us for the weekend. And I honestly think that this is his fault and his problem. So I seriously need to know, should I have just sucked it up and taken one for the team? Or am I the jerk for leaving in the way that I did? Because right now we are all still very upset. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, this is absolutely not your fault. And I think your husband needs to grow a backbone. Like seriously, this guy allowed his family to invite themselves out to your lake house and didn't even bother to be like, wait, no, you can't show up. Like this would have been an easy conversation from the get-go. He should have just said, oh, I'm sorry, but you can't come out because we are literally not prepped for anybody. Also, our lake house is not available during the winter. And that literally would have shut down any kind of argument they could possibly have. Like, I am right there with the original poster. This is completely his own fault. And it's so ironic that his family's like, oh my god, it's so rude that they didn't stick around and host us. But you know what else is rude? Showing up uninvited and thinking you can stay here without any kind of like forward notice. If he wants to surprise you with all of these people at this house that you did not plan for, then you should not be the one forced to host it and try and deal with it. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, because the way your husband acted, in my opinion, is incredibly selfish. And if he's gonna get himself into this kind of mess, then he's the one that absolutely deserves to try and clean it up. A creepy, obsessive regular at the bar I work at is obsessed with me in every way possible, but after making it very clear that I have a boyfriend and that I'm not interested in him, despite his desperate attempts to win me over, this creepy customer finally hits my last nerve when he demands that I give him a hug after he finds out that I'm quitting my job. And now, after rejecting him and turning him down in probably the most awkward way possible, I now feel really bad, as I never even wanted this situation to happen in the first place. Here's what happened. So I work at this kind of awful bar where there's a regular who started coming right when I was new. He immediately had a crush on me, which he told multiple people about and didn't even try to hide, which honestly doesn't necessarily bother me. I've had flirty guests who are into me before, but it doesn't bother me unless they are creepy about it. He progressively started coming more often when he knew I was working and started telling me more about his life. He told me about his sister dying, his depression, and his broken life basically. He kept saying how glad he was to see me, how much he needed it, and how much he needed time with me. And I thought to myself that this is starting to make me feel a bit weird, but it's not really anything bad yet. He then said to me, I need some more time with you outside of your work hours, and I'm just trying to avoid him asking me out. He tried to slide me his phone to put in my contact information, so I told him I have a boyfriend, which is true. And when I said that, it was really awkward, but he was nice about it. Then he started coming in more and more and staying for the entirety of my shift, which usually is about 4+ hours. He always sits at the bar and I can't really avoid it since I need to stay there as well. The entire time, I keep being clear about having a boyfriend, but he seems more and more into me. He started giving me songs to listen to and all this other stuff. I got a summer job abroad and I put in my notice for work, and my employer said I can return when I'm back home. Well, the guy came in and was saying how distraught he was when he heard the news and that he needed to see me before I go. He wrote me a playlist and added his number, but I just said thank you and made no comments about the number. At the end of my shift, I swear I saw this guy crying. He comes into my last 2 shifts, both days staying super late and talking to me nonstop. I just felt so awkward and uncomfortable, especially since he wasn't doing anything inherently bad. He's nice and all, but it was just too much overall, since I'm not interested in him whatsoever. He continues to mention the possibility of us texting and staying in touch, even though he knows that I am not single. Then, at the end of my last shift, after he was there since the beginning of my shift 5 hours ago, this guy says to me, come on, give me a hug. To which I respond by saying, I think I'm okay. And oh my god, his reaction was so awkward. He just stammered over his words and said, oh, okay, I'm gonna leave now. Now, I feel bad because of how he told me about his really personal problems, but also I kind of feel justified. Everyone said I did a good thing, but I still feel so bad. I mean, it was so awkward for me. I didn't want to hug him at all, and I also didn't want him to have the thought that he has a chance with me. I get the impression that he hoped I would be single by the time I return, since he said that a lot can happen in just a couple of months. But honestly, I really don't like this guy, and I seriously hope I never deal with him ever again. No, you didn't do anything wrong, because that guy is incredibly creepy. Like, for starters, the way he's constantly coming to the bar to spend time with you, and to sit at the bar and basically bother you for what, 5 hours? hours. That is incredibly creepy. And for him to continue doing that even after you told him, hey, I've got a boyfriend, I'm not interested, like that makes it even worse in my opinion, because he knows that you're not available, but he's still going after you. Like that's so weird, that's not okay. And you know what, when it comes to him trying to give you a hug, in my opinion, I think you made the right decision. Like what he was asking for was completely over the line. He was only sharing those personal things about his life so he could try to win you over, or just to manipulate you into feeling sorry for him, so that maybe in some like twisted future you would date him. Like this guy just screams really creepy, and in my opinion, I think you did the right thing by turning him down. And hopefully, if you ever do come back to that job, you never have to deal with that guy ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. This next one came from the Am I the Jerk subreddit. Check the links in the description if you would like to submit your own story. Am I the jerk for not wanting to be friends with someone after they lied about almost dying just to get attention? Because right now I am still very offended, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I have a friend who I shall refer to as Sarah, that's not her real name, and another friend by the name of Carly, also not her real name. Carly is best friends with Sarah, and Sarah often spends time at Carly's house. Since Carly has a bunch of siblings, Sarah helps out with the brothers too. When I first met Sarah, she was fairly nice, but something just felt completely off. You see, my mother went through heck and back, and because so, she gifted me with one of the most powerful gifts in my life. It's something I like to call the vibe check. If I feel like something's off about a person, their vibe check report will be at stake. And in this case, Sarah was definitely at risk of not passing the vibe check. So right now at this time, we're in high school. So smoking is kind of common amongst the students. When I used to sit with Sarah at lunch, she would often smoke, or in this case, just use a vape. I didn't mind it since she wouldn't try to force me to smoke or anything like that. Plus, it's her life. She could do whatever she wants. But that is all up until one day when she said that she'll stop smoking, which again is fine by me. It's her life, so she could do whatever she wants. But a few days later, I go over to Carly's house and we're chilling in her room, and Carly and I get up to go get some snacks. Carly uses the restroom real quick, and so I head back to the room by myself with the snacks in hand. Now, a thing about Carly's place is that she is the eldest out of all of her brothers, and two of her brothers are toddlers and would often walk into Carly's room when they are left to play. Anyways, I walk in and Sarah is vaping with the windows closed and the door cracked open. I was confused since not even a few days ago she said she was going to stop smoking. She said she just needed to get the edge off because of her family. And as a quick side note, she had no family problems. I know this because of my mother's coworker, which will be explained later on. I then quickly asked her to put it away because of the toddlers and the fact that none of the windows were open. And thankfully she does, and that ended that scenario. Now, I would have brushed it off completely if it wasn't for something that happened that really ticked me off, because right now I simply can't look at Sarah the same way. So a year after that, I was sitting inside at a lunch table and I was peacefully eating my sandwich. Right then, Carly comes towards my table with her lunch and she looks visibly upset. I put down my lunch and I ask what's wrong, and Carly explains that Sarah was in the hospital for liver failure and told Carly that she had a 75% chance of passing away. Carly breaks down and I try my best to comfort her, trying to reassure her that Sarah will be alright. And again, my makeshift spidey senses were starting to tingle, and I sensed that something wasn't right. Now, my mother at the time worked with Sarah's older sister by the name of Ray, also not her real name. They worked at a coffee shop, and when I came home that day and explained to my mother what happened, my mother said that was really weird, since Sarah visited the coffee shop that day and she looked completely fine. Confused, I asked for more details, and my mother informed me that Sarah was indeed fine, and that Ray just had a liver biopsy. So you can probably imagine how ticked off I was. Not only did Sarah lie about being on the edge of death, but she worried Carly to the point of her breaking down. So I texted Sarah and I asked her how she was feeling. And mind you, this was 2 days after she told Carly about her supposed liver damage. I said to her, "Hey Sarah, how was your day?" Sarah responded by saying, "I'm fine, how about yours?" And after responding by saying, "Oh yeah, today was decent," I said to her, "Hey, I heard from Carly that you were in the hospital for something to do with your liver. Are you feeling okay?" Sarah said, "Yeah, I'm fine." And I responded by saying, "Good," and then I asked to know when she got out. And that's when she told me a day ago. And I thought to myself, yeah, now I'm really ticked off. Carly was one of my best friends, and Sarah is taking advantage of her kindness and empathy. No, that is not gonna happen. At that point, I absolutely went off. Now, I'm not gonna say exactly what I said because trust me, I use some very colorful language. After that, Sarah acted like nothing happened. She still smokes and makes up small lies that don't even matter. And Carly is still friends with Sarah, but I just can't look at Sarah the same. I still can't forgive her, and even if I had to, I just can't do it. She hurt one of my dearest friends. And until I see some actual change, I find it hard to even think of her as the same sweet person that I thought she was. Next month is Carly's birthday, with Sarah and I both being invited to the party. And right now, I am seriously on the fence about going or not, because Carly is seriously one of my dearest friends. So I really need to know, would I be the jerk if I skipped out on this birthday party? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, for starters, I really hope Carly knows the truth about Sarah, because Sarah blatantly lied to Carly about being like in the hospital on the verge of like passing away. Like that is seriously insane, and that is not something you just lie about and then move on with your life. That's one of those things you just don't make up, because that seriously is messed up. Like everything else about Sarah seems like just the typical like annoying teenage girl, but the fact that she's lying to your friend and being like, oh my god, I'm on the verge of death, there's 75% chance I'm not gonna live through this, when all she had was like a minor procedure, like that in my opinion is super sketchy, and I would not want to be friends with that. But more to the point, in my opinion, I don't think this Sarah lady should get in the way of your friendship with Carly. So in my opinion, I think you absolutely should still go to this birthday party and just ignore Sarah altogether, because you're gonna be there to celebrate Carly, and in my opinion, I would just ignore Sarah and not give her the time of day. Am I the jerk for giving away my dad and my sister's tickets to my graduation ceremony, and by telling them not to bother showing up, since apparently they had plans about an hour before my graduation? Because right now, my dad is very upset with me, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old female, and I have my high school graduation ceremony this Wednesday. It was sent to my parents in an email that I will be giving a speech that day, as my grades made me valedictorian of my school's class of 2024, and I was so excited to do so. My school made us reserve and buy tickets to the ceremony weeks in advance, and I picked mine up on the 26th. The problem started at dinner when I told my family that I picked up tickets for my graduation day, and I would be keeping them with me until the day of, just to make sure that they don't get lost. My dad told me that he and my sister had plans for an hour before the ceremony, but that my mom would be there the whole time, and that they would try to be there for the after party. I was honestly shocked for a moment before starting to laugh, assuming that they weren't serious. When I realized they actually weren't joking, I'll admit that I was a bit mad. I'm usually a very shy and non-confrontational person, even around my family, but I started yelling at my dad and my sister, asking if they were seriously ditching my graduation ceremony. I told them that the after party was useless to attend, and that all the pictures of the graduates with their families would be taken at least 2 hours before the ceremony. They said it's fine, and we can take our own pictures the day after my graduation, but I just got up and I left dinner. Over the weekend, I saw a few people on my class group chat complain that they didn't get enough tickets, so I offered up the 2 tickets I had and met up with my girlfriend from my class to give them to her. And even though I told her not to, she actually paid me the original price for them. When the topic of graduation was brought up by my dad today during lunch, I told him that I gave the other 2 tickets away and only my mom will be attending, so they shouldn't even bother with the after party. Well, he got mad and asked why I would do that, to which I replied that I don't see the point in wasting money on tickets if they're literally not going to use them. My dad then blew up on me, saying I'm acting like a spoiled brat, and it's not like I'll die if he and my sister are a bit late to my graduation. I spoke to a few people about it, namely my friends and my grandma. My friends said good riddance, and if they consider their plans more important, then honestly they can have fun. But my grandma said that while she understands my side of things, I shouldn't have given away the tickets just to spite my dad, because maybe he would have changed his mind and gone on time. So I'm honestly looking for a non-biased opinion, because right now I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first things first, I think your dad and your sister are 100% the jerks in this story, and I don't think you've done anything wrong. Instead of congratulating you and being happy that you're at the top of your class, they decided to say, oh, we're gonna be late to your ceremony. You know that thing you've been working for your entire life? Yeah, we're not gonna be there on time. We might make the after party though, see you then. Like, that is insane to me, and there is no good excuse for the way they're acting. Like, if they really cared in the way that your mother very clearly cares, then they would be there on time for your graduation. They would cancel the plans they have for your graduation, and they would make the time for you. But as it is right now, it doesn't seem like they're doing that at all. It doesn't seem seem like they care about you or your accomplishments in the slightest. And seriously, the fact that you're the top of your class and that you get to give a speech at your graduation ceremony, like that is a big deal. That is literally a once-in-a-lifetime moment, and I would not want anyone to miss that, especially people that I care about. So you know what? I think you made it crystal clear that if they're gonna make their decision, that you have every right to make yours. So, in my opinion, I don't think you're the jerk. It sounded like they were not gonna show up, and even if they did decide to change their minds later, they should have been supportive in the moment when you told them. Because their behavior at the time was completely atrocious, and any of the consequences they are now facing because of those actions is entirely their own fault. Am I the jerk for refusing to give my stepdad the role that he wants in my wedding? Because right now he is incredibly upset, as he feels I'm humiliating him in front of the entire family. Here's what happened. I'm a 27-year-old female, and I'll be getting married in the next 18 months or so. Originally, I had planned to have my stepdad and my paternal grandpa share the father of the bride duties because my dad has been dead since I was 6 years old. And my stepdad has been there for me almost as long, but my grandpa is hugely supportive and has played the role as most important man in my life after my dad. Now, my stepdad did not want to share the role, and he wanted the walk down the aisle and the father-daughter dance to just be us. He told me he was not okay with my grandpa doing either alone or both with him. He told me when it comes down to it, he was the real dad in my life since I was 7 years old. And while he might not be biologically my dad, he has been married to my mom and taking care of me for 20 years. And he's also the father of all of my siblings. And his place in my life should be honored and not be shared with a grandparent just because I lost my dad. So I told him that I would just have my grandfather then. Now, that was not the end of the conversation, and it came back up during my mom's birthday dinner. He mentioned it in front of his family, also known as his parents and siblings, as well as my mom and my mom's family. He told me he wanted to be the father of the bride. He wanted to walk me down the aisle. He wanted a father and daughter dance, and he wanted a toast. I mean, he literally wanted everything that comes traditionally with this. But because he brought it up in front of them, and because I was slightly annoyed by him bringing it up again without clarifying that he was okay with sharing the role, I told him no again. I also told him that I had already asked my grandfather. And mind you, this is in front of both families, and it started a huge debate over this. Once I realized I was hated for saying no, not only by his family, but also some of my mom's family, including my mom, all of which disliking the idea that I couldn't let him do it, I decided that I was gonna leave. My stepdad told me that I had humiliated him, and I made the dinner all about me. I said that he brought it up first, and he told me kindness and decency would suggest that I not turn him down in front of everybody. I also got a very angry message from one of his siblings, and another from the same sibling on behalf of his parents. They told me I had no business treating him that way, and when I didn't reply to this person either time, my stepdad told me that I was going out of my way to behave inappropriately and that it really hurt him. Now, the importance of my paternal family in my life has always been an issue for my stepdad and his family, but this is especially prevalent with the importance of my grandfather. For many years, my stepdad has been very jealous, and his family has commented that I shouldn't need my grandpa because I have my stepdad. His family have expressed their dislike for me several times because I have the relationship with grandpa that they feel I should have with their son. My stepdad expected an apology, and when he didn't get one, he told me off yet again, stating that he didn't like my behavior at the dinner. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, this is your wedding, so you seriously get to call the shots from top to bottom. But also, if your stepdad really didn't want to be humiliated at dinner, then maybe he shouldn't have brought this up in front of everybody. What he was trying to do was try to force you into saying yes. He had everybody there gathered together for your mom's birthday dinner, and he thought, oh yeah, now's my time to really get back at this kid. He wanted to put you on the spot and try to force you into saying yes. Like, that is completely toxic in my opinion, and that is not okay. So it's so ironic in my opinion that he's like, oh my god, you humiliated me. But like, in reality, dude, you humiliated yourself. Up until this point, I was kind of on the stepdad side, where I'm like, yeah, it kind of makes sense. He's been in your life for so long. He's played a big role in like your upbringing and all this stuff. But then he pulls this stunt, and then with the further information about him not liking your grandfather, like, it kind of makes sense why you're trying to share the responsibilities with your grandfather. Like, this guy just doesn't like your family at all. So no, I don't think you're the jerk at all, and I think if your stepdad didn't want to be embarrassed, then maybe he shouldn't have tried to put you on the spot in the way that he did. An entitled jerk thinks that he doesn't need required documentation so that he can get his car back after we towed it out of a a fire lane, and I'm honestly so sick of entitled jerks like this guy. Here's what happened. So I drive a tow truck for a living, and on the weekends, the drivers have to release cars when people come to pick them up from the yards due to the yard offices being closed. This entitled jerk's car was towed for being parked in a fire lane, and apparently he had been going back and forth with a person on the phone for about 2 hours, complaining about how his car was illegally towed, and during those conversations, they made it very clear that he needs to prove his ownership of the vehicle in order to pick it up. That would include either a current registration that is not expired or the title to the vehicle. When I got to the yard and started the process of releasing his car, I asked him if he was the owner of the vehicle. He said, "Yes, here's my proof." Then he handed me a receipt of 4 tires from Costco with his license plate number on it. I asked him if the registration was in the truck like most normal people, and he said that it should be, and I warned him that if it's not, I cannot legally release the vehicle. So I went to go look, and guess what? There was absolutely no registration to be found. But I was nice enough to grab his wallet for him so that he could take care of any business he needed in order to get his proper documentation. When I went back out to the parking lot, I explained to him that I legally cannot release the car because he can't prove that he owns it, but he just said, my keys should be proof enough. Well, guess what, jerk? That's not enough proof. He then went on to say that I was just trying to keep his car longer to make money off of it. But like, the thing is, I don't make more money off of a car depending on how long it's been in the yard. He then went on to accuse the person who towed the car of stealing stuff out of his wallet. He told me to call the cops, and I said, well, you're free to do that, but that just means when the officer gets out here, he would have to look up his registration and basically vouch for the guy that it is his car and sign my tablet stating that it's okay to release the car to him. And trust me, in most cases, the officer does not want to put their names on it. He then claimed that it would take 40 days to get a registration in mail, but that's not true. In the state we live in, you can do all of that stuff online, and I can even take the document off his phone as proof. We could have done it right then and there, but he said he didn't know how to do it. Now, normally I would help the person do that, but he gave me an attitude from the moment I drove up to him, and I was really starting to give it back. I told him there are third-party motor vehicle services that work on the weekends, so he demanded that I tell him where he could find one. I simply told him to Google it, and he just responded by shouting, "Google? Are you kidding me?" And at that point, I was so fed up with his attitude and his entitlement. He then tells me that it's not his fault that we don't have the proper documentation to release the car, even though he's the one who failed to bring any kind of documentation. And I seriously cannot stand entitled jerks who act like this. Yeah, this guy's being super obnoxious. Like, first of all, you parked in a fire lane, buddy. How did you not think you were gonna get towed out of the way? You cannot park there. That is very illegal. So for him to be like, I was towed for no reason, it's like, no, you were definitely towed for a good reason. Also, how does this guy not have his registration in his car itself? Like, that is completely irresponsible. That's the only place anyone in their right mind would put it. Unless your car's like super expensive and you don't want that information in there. But even then, like, at least keep a copy of it on your phone. So yeah, the original poster is 100% right because this entitled jerk was completely out of line. And in my opinion, I don't blame you for denying him any kind of service. An entitled Karen messes with the wrong person on the wrong day, as she decides to call me selfish all because I took a spot at a table in a coffee shop. But I decided that I was not going to take that sitting down, so I followed her out of the coffee shop as she left, and I gave her the exact same energy she gave me, eventually putting this entitled Karen right back in her place. And I've honestly never felt better about getting back at someone in my life. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in November. Out of the blue, my healthy, hardworking 41-year-old husband had a stroke. We were just chatting one night, and then suddenly our lives changed in the blink of an eye. An ambulance was called, and we spent a horrific night wondering whether my husband was coming home again. He was put on the stroke ward, and for the first 2 days, I was back and forward to the hospital constantly. It is not close to my house, so when I was unable to be there due to visiting hours, or even him having some kind of test, I would go to a coffee shop not far from the hospital, but much closer to my house. I also chose that place as I know the staff. I work for myself, so I would take my laptop or my book and just kill some time until I could go back to the hospital. And the longest I was ever there was maybe an hour and a half. Well, enter the entitled Karen of the story and her browbeaten husband. I was trying to answer some emails and was letting people know what had happened when I heard it. She said to me, "You are so selfish sitting there when other people are in the queue." I look up, not sure who she's talking to, but apparently it was me. Now, I know that people table hogging is annoying, but for starters, there were quite a few empty tables around me, and secondly, there were people who had been there before I I even got there. Now, she didn't wait for me to reply, and instead she just huffed her way out the door, muttering about how I was selfish and she had seen me there yesterday. Now, I don't think she expected me to follow her, but that's exactly what I did. I was tired, I was worried about my husband, and I was very mad that she didn't have the guts to say it to my face and stick around. She picked the wrong time and the wrong woman to mess with. I asked her to repeat what she said to my face, and I said to her, yes, I was sitting on my laptop, but the staff knew I was there waiting to go back to the hospital as my husband just had a stroke, and this coffee shop is close to the hospital for me in case there's an emergency, and I still need to work, so I'm doing what I needed to do. And on top of that, maybe you should just mind your own business, or at least have the common decency to say it to my face. And in hindsight, I maybe should have not called her a geriatric old cow bag, but that's exactly what I did. She then responded by screaming at me and saying, I'm only 53. But I responded by saying, yikes, you're only a little bit older than me. Man, you must have had a hard life. Sorry about that. When I said that, she stormed off and went back to the coffee shop, and my friend told me that she was a pain in the neck for harassing some of the students who came to work there, and she always got a takeaway coffee. But despite it all, I was one of the first people to stand up to her, and I think her big mistake was thinking that I would take it. But she definitely messed up, as one of the benefits of being a part of Gen X is that we just don't care anymore, and she definitely should have known better. Now, I do feel bad about commenting on how she looked, as I believe we all age gracefully, but in my opinion, she absolutely deserved everything else. Seriously, what is wrong with people? How can you possibly go into a coffee shop, see some random woman sitting by a table on her laptop, and think to yourself, yes, this is my chance to tell her off? Like, the original poster literally did nothing to this entitled Karen, but the entitled Karen still went out of her way to make a big scene and like try and take a shot at her. Like, that's so rude and completely, quite literally uncalled for. Like, you're just sitting there answering your emails. You didn't do anything to her. But also, it is incredible to me that the original poster is like, oh, you want to start stuff? Cool, let's start this bonfire. And then they literally follow them out of the coffee shop. Like, that is crazy to me. I definitely don't think I would have the guts to do that personally, and I would just chalk that up as some weirdo who clearly is having a bad day. But no, the original poster was not having any of that. Their husband had a stroke, they're stressed out, they've got work, they gotta make it to the hospital. Like, seriously, they're at their wits' end. And it's so funny because this entitled Karen got the same energy back that she gave, and then suddenly she turns all red in the face and can't handle it anymore. Well, if that's the case, then don't start the fire in the first place. This is all hilarious to me because it was completely avoidable, and all this stupid Karen had to do was get her coffee and leave the store. But instead, she decided to pick a fight with the wrong person, and in my opinion, she got exactly what she deserved. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My mother keeps falling for different scams over and over again, costing her thousands of dollars from her bank account and her retirement fund, and I'm honestly just so sick of it. So after this last incident where she gave away her bank information, I have officially given up and have chosen to step away from my mom and refuse to involve myself in fixing her problems ever again. And for the first time, I honestly feel at peace with my decision. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my 68-year-old mother is losing her mind, and she has been for a while now. We knew she had been conversing with several people online for over a year, most of which claimed to be famous men, and all of which needed money for various things. We had been telling her since December that she was being scammed, tried involving DHR and the agency who helps protect seniors, but all of it fell on deaf ears. Courts won't do anything without medical diagnosis, neurologist appointments take months, so we're just stuck trying to keep her from self-destructing until then. At the end of February, she finally admits that she needs help. Actually, she called my brother and said that she was broke and needed to fix it, but we're just gonna say that she was asking for help. Per the bank, her home was a few hours from going into foreclosure on the day that we got the call from her, and her utilities were being turned off the very next week. She was over $100,000 in credit card debt, most of it from sending these men pictures of every single credit card she has. She also gave them all her bank account information and sent at least $30,000 in cash via Bitcoin ATMs or prepaid gift cards. I'm not sure I'll ever know the exact amount that she has spent on them, but I do know that she owes about $7,000 in taxes this year from all the withdrawals that she made from her retirement, which she freely admits she sent to those men. She also still swears every one of them are actually all the celebrities they claim to be, and still truly believes one of them is the love of her life. My brother and I told her the only way we would help her is if she gave us power of attorney, which she thankfully did. We then then caught up her house payments and reconnected the utilities. I have been going through her bills as I pay all of them and trying to help her budget, including finding her cheaper internet, TV, and cell phone plans, so she'll be able to pay her own bills going forward on her fixed income. She has been beyond nasty to me every step of the way, telling me what a disappointment I am and that she wishes I was never born. There have been some terrible remarks about possible self-harm, if you know what I mean, to which she laughed in my face and told the police she would never do anything that dramatic. She calls me almost daily and tells me that she fell over, only for myself or the ambulance to rush over and have her admit that she wasn't actually hurt, but was hoping a trip to the ER would get her pain meds. I took her phone, created a new Apple ID, and had it set so that she couldn't call or text anyone not saved in her contacts, and she can't add people or numbers or applications without my approval. It was the only thing short of changing her number that I could do to stop her contacting all these scammers. I mean, she adamantly refused to change the number because she's had that one for over 30 years. But she has still been getting hundreds of text messages from 6-digit numbers, and I'm guessing because she responded to them in the past, so they were able to get around the block. I have told her 1,000 times to not even open them. She needs to delete them or just send them to junk. Fast forward, and she had a hip replacement surgery this past week. While in the hospital, she received a text telling her that she won a free oxygen machine and that she needed to call this number to claim her prize. She texts me and tells me that she needs to add this number to her phone because it's a home health medical equipment company and she wants to talk to them about life alerts, so I add their number. She calls and they tell her that she just needs to give them her bank account information to cover shipping. And of course, she just gives it to them. Then she calls me to brag about her winnings. I call the same number and what do you know? I'm also an instant winner if I give them my bank account information. I press the number 0 to speak with a person and now I've won a free year of DirecTV. I hit 0 again and now I've won a free year of pest control from Terminex if I just give them my bank account information. So it's a total scam that my mother has fallen for while laying in her hospital bed recovering from surgery. It's almost like the last 2 months didn't happen. Like she has learned nothing from this whole experience. She doesn't even need an oxygen machine, but decided that since her parents had breathing issues at the end of their lives, and because it was free, this opportunity was too good to pass up in case she needs one later. She tells me to just call them back and cancel, but I'm sure the kind phone scammers will totally forget your bank account if you just ask them nicely. Beyond a shadow of a doubt, she has been showing signs of progressive dementia and is at a moderate to moderately severe cognitive decline on all the staging models. So I get it, this is the new normal for her. She no longer possesses the mental capacity to understand real from fake, and she will continue to fall for stuff like this as long as she's alive. And I just can't do anything to stop it. I can just crawl along behind her and try to fix it, while hoping she shows up to the neurologist in May so that I can get the courts to intervene. She will always be in danger of herself and her own well-being, with the added bonus of being awful to me every step of the way. So I have to decide, am I done trying to save her from herself? I'm opening another new bank account for her tomorrow, and I'm putting what little money she still has in it. I have turned off all the automatic payments that have been coming out of my account, and I will be turning off all the parental controls I had established on her electronics. Then I'm telling her good luck. Don't call me when you're on fire again, and then I'm blocking her on my phone. My brother and I believe she'll be in a mess again by the 4th of July, but you know what? That is her problem and not ours. I have had a heart issue for 2 years now. It's an inappropriate sinus tachycardia that isn't responding to medications. Both of my cardiologists have told me that stress is exacerbating my condition. I've lost 25 pounds over the last 3 months, which I'm also chalking up to stress. I literally cannot explain the peace I feel in my soul tonight, knowing that I have done everything I could for this woman, and now I get to just be done tomorrow. It's complicated and sad and frustrating because oh, how I have tried to help her, and I know how this will end, but it's also so very calming to know that I am done. I am completely free of this situation. First of all, I want to say this is really sad, both with your heart condition and also what's happened to your mom. Like, it really is not only incredibly frustrating to be treated the way you're being treated, but also to watch your own mother fall apart at the seams like this. Like, it really does seem like your mom is falling apart mentally, and that really is not fair. But more importantly, it's not fair for you and your brother to try and fix this every step of the way. I mean, she is literally in the hospital recovering from a hip replacement, and here she is once again falling for another scam. Like, that overall is really sad. So in my opinion, it completely makes sense as to why you're taking a step away, and I know if I was in your shoes, I probably would have done the exact same thing. I'm under the assumption that my entitled friend is expecting me to treat her for her birthday, but after she did absolutely nothing for my birthday, I'm kind of at a point where I don't even want to show up for her stupid birthday party. And at this point, I kind of don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, I went out with my friends for my birthday back in February. My one friend bought me lunch, 3 beautiful gifts that mean so much to me, and even a beautiful birthday cake. I was so surprised and I really felt so special. She even posted a lovely Instagram story about me, and it was really the sweetest, most meaningful thing ever. As for my other friend, she attended my birthday celebration with me and my other friend. We all met up for dinner, and my other friend didn't get me a gift. She didn't help pay for the cake or for the dinner. Now, I'm not looking for anything, and I'm sure that I sound very selfish, but the thing is, my friend is always spending so much money on her boyfriend. Like, she dropped $2,500 on his Christmas and birthday gift. And it's like, no, I'm not looking for anything like that. But my friend goes from spending so much money on her boyfriend to getting herself in financial problems and constantly getting her card declined. I'm so confused by her financial situation. And to be honest, I'm pretty hurt that she didn't even get me a gift. I'm not looking for anything crazy, but just like a token of appreciation would be nice. So here's the thing. My friend's birthday is in June, and she is already beginning to plan for her birthday. It seems the generous friend, the one that gave me such a lovely gift and a cake, won't be coming along because she just started a new job. So it would be me, my friend's brother, and possibly her toxic boyfriend. My friend is already talking about going out for her birthday dinner. She's already making plans and suggesting that we have to go out for her birthday, and she's very excited and deep in the weeds and making these plans. But I don't know how to tell her that I'm not covering her half, or if she even expects me to cover her for her birthday. For my birthday, I really was not looking for anything expensive, but I wish she at least got me a card or some kind of gift for like under 10 bucks. I know she has money since she buys everything for her boyfriend, and she's always spending money on anything and everything for him. And since my friend is not coming to the birthday, I really just don't know what to do, as it really feels like all of this is falling on me. Should I try to find a way of getting out of this birthday party, or should I just go and not pay for her? This is all so awkward, and I'm honestly so confused on what to do next. Yeah, I can understand why this is like a tricky situation, because you're literally going to a friend's birthday party who has never acted like a friend towards you in the slightest. And I'm right there with you. If you're going to be showing up to my birthday party, I'm not expecting literally anything. It could be an Amazon digital gift card for all I care. But like, at least show up with something for the party. Like, that's what the celebration is for, isn't it? Like, it doesn't make any sense why she showed up and didn't be like, hey, I just got you an Amazon gift card, happy birthday, or something along those lines. Like, that really would have been easy. So with that in mind, I don't blame you for not wanting to go to this birthday. So you definitely could go and get her like something really cheap, like a gift card or some kind of card with like 10 bucks in it, or something where it's like, hey, I'm giving you the same energy you gave me, and then you just leave it at that. And I definitely think you're on the right track of saying, no, I'm not going to split anything with this lady, and I'm only going to pay for myself and get her something simple. But if you really did not want to go and you wanted to stay out of this, I wouldn't blame you in the slightest. I think any reasonable person would be like, yeah, it kind of makes sense why you wouldn't want to go. And the best part about it is that you guys are all adults, and you really can just say, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it, but happy birthday, and then just move about your life from there. Like, she might still have a negative reaction if you do decide to go that route, but like, you know, you don't have to go, right? Like, I hope you know that you really can skip out on this if you really just don't want to go. You're definitely not being forced to go to this party, and it really is not that much of a high stakes situation. So hopefully this all works out for you in some kind of way, because honestly, the friend you're describing here doesn't really sound like a good friend, and I really don't think you would be missing much if you did skip out on the party. Am I the jerk for not going to my stepdaughter's birthday, all because they disinvited my son from attending? Because right now I am still very upset, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My fiance is 33 years old, and I am a 34-year-old female, and we've been together for 5 years going on 6. I was there for him for his addiction recovery and raised his daughter while he was in jail and homeless and in rehab. I have a son from a previous relationship who is 15 years old, and we have a son together who's 2 years old. This last weekend was his daughter's 13th birthday, and the day before, he messaged me to say that his daughter doesn't want my son at her birthday because her boyfriend is coming over. For context, my son and her boyfriend get along really well, and she feels that she's just gonna be left out on her birthday. So I messaged my fiance, and I said I would stop by and drop off her gift, but I'm not gonna be staying, as my son was excited about seeing his sister on her birthday, fiancé, and he was also very sad that he wasn't invited anymore. Well, my fiancé then got angry, stating that I was making a huge deal out of it, saying to me that she's allowed to have whoever she wants at her birthday, which, by the way, I completely agree with. She has every right to do whatever she wants on her birthday. But on that note, I have just as much of a right to not show up, all because my son was upset about being uninvited. That way, he can know that I will always have his back. His mom called me to find out what was happening, and I told her what he had said. Well, she told me that his daughter never said that she didn't want her brother there, and that we must come to the birthday party. But I said no because my son was already upset. I didn't tell my son that my fiance was the person who uninvited him, but he figured it out and asked me if it was my fiance and not his sister who didn't want him around. I ended up taking my son to the movies and the arcade, but when he saw his sister at the mall, he decided he didn't want to stay any longer and we just straight up left. So I really need to know, am I the jerk for being upset about this whole situation? Because right now things are incredibly messy. Man, that was seriously a plot twist. I can't believe the fiance is acting that way and being like, yeah, no, my daughter doesn't want you there. But in reality, it's the fiance that doesn't want the son there. Like, what is going on? That is so disgusting and weird. Like, why did he do that? Why would you do that to a 15-year-old kid? And then you're gonna lie and blame it on your daughter? Like, that is so insane to me. That is such a betrayal of trust. The fact that this guy would go against your son for literally no good reason, in my opinion, is just so unacceptable. And this is someone you're getting ready to marry. Like, I'm seriously left speechless that this guy would try and throw your son under the bus, and all without a solid reason why. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. I would be very upset about this as well, because in my opinion, the way your fiance is acting is absolutely unacceptable. An entitled jerk gets his car scratched by one of our cars after he parks illegally near our property, and I'm honestly still blown away by this guy's entitlement after he tried to take us to court just to demand full compensation. Here's what happened. Okay, so I work at a car rental place that has a car wash next door. They were owned by the same guy though, and the car wash was essentially a side hustle with a bonus of being able to clean the rental cars. As such, we constantly drove in and out of the two lots. The gap between the two driveways was just big enough to fit a car, so it was a tight turn, made even tighter if a car was parked there. After discussing this with the city council, they agreed to paint the curb between the two driveways yellow, just to make it illegal to park there. But as you can probably imagine, people of course still park there. One day, a guy with one of those obnoxiously large Fords parked there, and you know the type. It's the kind where it takes up multiple parking spots at the mall, the type of car that has an owner with a big ego and a very short temper. On that day, we had to clean a bus for a family on their way from the airport. They were ahead of schedule, so we had to move fast. One of my colleagues did his best to navigate around the Ford, but he couldn't do it, and he scraped a huge gash into the panel above a tire. Now, as I'm sure you can guess, when the owner saw this, he flipped out. We tried telling him that he shouldn't have parked there and that it's illegal, but he simply didn't care, because according to him, he has a big, expensive car, so he's allowed to park anywhere he wants. And he said that he chose this spot so that he was away from other people, thus reducing the risk of damage. And obviously, that didn't really work out for you, did it, buddy? Well, this entitled jerk demanded compensation, but we straight up refused. So fast forward, and this idiot actually took us to court. But thankfully, after all was said and done, he lost. The curb was yellow, so he definitely shouldn't have parked there. And as a result, he was ruled completely at fault. Yeah, that guy sounds like an obnoxious jerk. Seriously, the curb is yellow. It's yellow for a reason. That means you can't park there. I seriously can't stand when people act like that and then try to turn around and be like, oh, I can't believe you. Like, seriously, buddy? No, I can't believe you. Just literally move your car anywhere else and you could have avoided getting a scratch on your car. But clearly, entitled jerks like this can't see logic, because if he did, he could have avoided all of this trouble in the first place. An entitled jerk gets arrested on a tour boat after he endangered the boat, the crew, and the passengers by trying to mess with the controls in really bad weather. But as a result, this guy got locked in a storage closet as the boat was brought back to shore, with 2 Coast Guards waiting for this entitled jerk. And I seriously hope that this guy got in trouble for ruining our trip. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm currently in Hawaii. I booked a boat tour and things were going well. The boat stopped for a little bit for people to swim, and the entitled jerk of this story starts talking to the woman who's captain of the ship about how he was in the Navy way back in the day, telling her stories that she obviously didn't care to hear. You could tell she was annoyed, but she tried to be a polite tour guide while also trying to do her job and watch over the swimmers. Eventually, the waves got a little bit higher, so we were told to get on the boat. As we were trying to leave, the anchor was stuck on a rock, so the captain and crew had to do a lot of maneuvering to get the anchor out. There was a crewman in the water trying to see the anchor, and the rest of the crew frantically running around doing different things. It started to seem like a dangerous situation, so the rest of the tourists just sat down, kept quiet, and got out of the way. The weather quickly started to turn for the worse as the wind started to pick up. Well, this entitled jerk kept interfering with the crew. He was yelling orders, he was confusing the crew, trying to copy hand signals, and eventually the captain ordered him to sit down. Well, as he sat down, he was muttering how he would have done things differently, and this is in some typical jerk fashion, looking for someone to reassure his comments. The crew was still dealing with the anchor, and the guy in the water is fighting the waves and trying to direct the boat. Other crew members are relaying orders while keeping an eye on the guy in the water. The captain couldn't see the guy in the water from the control area and was trying to do a lot of small movements to try and get the anchor out while also trying to not run over the diver. Well, this entitled jerk then got up and did something that I honestly never expected him to do. He started messing with the controls, and right when he did that, the captain rightfully chewed him out, and the way she did this was pretty epic. She chewed him out and told him to sit down right now. And once they got the anchor unstuck, another crewmate continued to carry on with chewing this guy out and had to confine this guy to a storage closet area of the boat. The captain then told everybody to find a seat, telling us to not get up, and then said that we were returning to shore. When we got back to the dock, we arrived there with 2 Coast Guard people waiting for this jerk. I'm not totally sure what happened, but I hope he got some kind of fine at the very least. This entitled jerk endangered the boat, the crew, and ruined 50 people's trip, all because he wanted to pretend that he was important again. And I really hope that he gets in trouble in the way that he deserves. Wow, what was this guy thinking? Like, what he was doing was so unsafe. He doesn't know that boat at all. He probably hasn't even run a boat in how many years? Like what, 30 years or something like that? Like this old entitled jerk just steps up and says, "I'm gonna help out." Like, dude, what are you doing? You're gonna get everybody killed. Like, there's already a guy in the water trying to get the anchor out, and this guy walks up and starts messing with the controls of the boat. Like, he could have taken that guy out and then taken everybody out in the process. So truly, I'm right there with the original poster. I hope they get exactly what they deserve, and that the Coast Guard were not just there for intimidation, because what that guy did is so bad, and I really think that you and the rest of the crew got incredibly lucky. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for being mad at my fiance after he secretly spent our small travel fund? Because right now I am very angry, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so a few months ago, my fiance and I decided to start a small travel fund. I told my fiance that when I was in my 20s, I used to save up money for trips, and that I never used my travel fund for anything else, such as being tempted to grab some cash from it when I really needed it. It helped me save plenty without burning a hole in my pocket once I was on the road, and he liked the idea. I made it explicitly clear that this was super important to me because we don't have super high earnings, and anything we can save for the fund would be lovely since we were planning to travel to Italy this year. For 3 to 4 months, we both contributed to the fund, and we saved up enough to cover accommodation expenses, which made me really excited. Well, a few days ago, I was cleaning up, and something made me look into our fund. Now, the fund is in an envelope, which I know that's a bad idea, and I opened it just to remind myself of how much we saved, only to find that the entire fund was empty. The money was completely gone. When my fiance came back from the store, I asked him where the money was, and he said he spent half of it on a gift he recently bought me, which for reference was a hardcover comic book that I knew was pricey and was very happy and grateful to receive it at the time, and my fiance wouldn't say what the other half was for. And when he told me this, I was livid, not because he spent the money, although that really does still upset me, but because he spent it without telling me. His excuse is that he didn't take me seriously when I said this was important to me. My fiance said he would put the money back and that he was sorry and that he didn't think it was going to be such a big deal. I told him that I didn't trust him anymore, and to the fact that he used money that I contributed to the fund to either buy my own gift or to spend it on God knows what was a severe violation of trust from my point of view. My fiance said I was being a jerk about it, and we are still very upset with each other. So seriously, am I the jerk in this scenario? Because I really at this point don't know what to do. Your fiance is so far out of line in my opinion, it's not even funny. For starters, no, of course you're not the jerk. This guy literally bought you a gift with your own money. Like, how does he not realize that's exactly what he did? And you know what? He absolutely should put money back in that fund. It really should go in like a bank account or at least somewhere safe where he can't get his grubby fingers all over it, because clearly he can't be trusted with that money ever again. Like, I'm right there with the original poster. I would feel like my trust was completely shattered by that one act of like dishonesty, and I just would never trust him with that vacation fund ever again, because you put probably a lot of time and money into that, not to mention the fact that you guys don't make that much money as it is. So for him to just spend it all of a sudden without telling you first, that in my opinion is completely uncalled for. And in my opinion, you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. My cousin has become an entitled, spoiled brat, and it's honestly become super upsetting. And I'm now in the process of cutting all contact with them because they have become completely insufferable, and I absolutely do not want to have a relationship with her. Here's what happened. Okay, I want to start off by saying that my cousin used to be a kind, creative, and caring person. We used to be close. We would play Roblox for hours and go to the park as kids, but now she has completely changed. I see my aunt sometimes and do chores for her, and honestly, my cousin is a complete slob. She leaves trash and dirty dishes everywhere. She leaves food in the sink and half-empty soda cans on the counter. She is almost a legal adult and doesn't do her own laundry. I mean, she doesn't even put her own dishes in the dishwasher. If she uses up the last of something, she just leaves empty packages on the counters and leaves it for others to clean up. I was visiting my aunt today, and my cousin left an empty container of milk on the counter, and her mom put it on the coffee table for her to clean, and she just threw it on the table. She leaves garbage and hair all over the place, and she's also incredibly rude to anyone who isn't her boyfriend or her friend. She is completely disrespectful to her mom and treats her mom like a slave, while also treating her like a free Uber service and expects her to do whatever she wants at the moment she wants it. She treats our grandma like an ATM, and she doesn't even call her, let alone visit her. Yet she still expects our grandma to pay for her phone bill, her Spotify, and so much more. She recently got a free trip to Europe, completely paid for by her mom and my grandmother. Her mom got mad when another family member didn't help pay. Meanwhile, this person hasn't even spoken to her in years. She is completely enabled and spoiled rotten. At least to my knowledge, she faces no consequences for anything. The most that might happen is that she will get told off once in a while, yet still nothing changes. She is completely rude to me and mocks my sensory issues, and when I'm over doing chores or visiting my aunt, I often hear her on the phone talking crap about other people. The most annoying thing is that she's getting paid $10 a week for acting like this. I admit that I am paid by my grandmother when I do chores for her, and my mom and my aunt buy me gifts sometimes because I do almost every chore for them, but I don't care what I get. I care that she gets paid and gets whatever she wants for doing nothing. Her mom always says that I need a relationship with her, but I always say absolutely not. I don't want a relationship with a disrespectful slob who is spoiled and entitled. I don't want a relationship with someone who is selfish and uses others. I don't want a relationship with someone who has no self-discipline. I don't consider her family, and I'm already in the process of cutting off all contact. Yeah, I completely understand where the original poster is coming from, because I can't stand people who act this way. Like, what the original poster is describing is someone who literally lives at home rent-free and doesn't do anything to contribute to anything in the house. Like, they're messy, they're a slob, they treat everybody like garbage, and they're always using people for free stuff, like money or a ride or, I don't know, labor. Like, your cousin literally doesn't do any chores, and it baffles me that your aunt isn't like stepping up and being like, okay, if you want to live here, you got to step up and do something. So honestly, it really is disappointing to have a cousin like that, but at least you know exactly the kind of people you want to be associated with. Because from the sounds of it, your cousin is super entitled, and I don't blame you for choosing to keep your distance. My parents are guilt-tripping me into staying in their house and continuing to live with them, saying that I'm not ready to move in with my boyfriend and that I would be useless since I'm not financially independent yet. And at this point, I'm so confused and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so currently I'm a 23-year-old female and I just newly graduated. I've been living with roommates the past few years, and it's been hard for my mental health moving back in with my family. They constantly want to know what I'm doing, where I am, and try to track my location, and will get upset if I go out too much. For context, I just finished school 2 weeks ago and have been hanging out with my friends and my boyfriend on the weekends only. I feel like I also walk on eggshells in the house as my mom has anger problems, and every few weeks weeks, her and my dad will have a screaming match or start throwing things at each other. And whenever that isn't happening, they make snide remarks and insults at each other. So it's just a matter of time for the next fight to happen. I have about $6,000 in savings, and my boyfriend offered to let me move in with him if I would pay $1,250 a month in rent. I'll be studying for my licensing exam for the next 3 months, while also working full-time to ensure my savings don't deplete too fast. But here's the thing, my parents are very against this, as they think moving in prior to marriage is wrong, and they say that I can't take care of myself, and that I'm not good at housework, so he won't want me because I'm useless, and I should be financially independent as a woman first. My parents hate that I'd be giving money to his family, as his mom owns the condo that he rents, and they're guilt-tripping me into staying, saying things like they're living off of their savings and that they're broke, and that family comes first, and I shouldn't give away my hard-earned money to some other people to help pay off their mortgage. My dad doesn't have a good earning job, and my mom is a stay-at-home job who takes care of the house. They didn't put a single cent towards my education, other than my dad paying gas to drive me home sometimes during school breaks, and helping me move out of my university home. But they're saying because I'm family and they spent a lot of money raising me, I need to get a job soon and put that money towards the family to help. They will be charging me market rent or just below once I get a nursing job. So right now, I just need to hear some unbiased opinions on if it's okay for me to move out. I know my parents are toxic, but it's also hard to differentiate what's right and wrong because this is just how I was raised. What should I do? Okay, I want to say first and foremost that moving out would not be a bad idea. There is nothing wrong with you moving in with your boyfriend, and I think you really should ignore your parents if this is something you really want to do. It seems like they're grasping at straws right now. They're trying to find any excuse to keep you in the house, most likely because they gain some kind of benefit by you being in the house, whether that's free labor or like money you're making from your job or something like that. And to top it all off, they sound really manipulative, not to mention the anger issues that they very clearly have. And just to help you out, parents who throw things and get angry at the drop of a hat are not normal parents. That is not a normal upbringing or a normal household, and I'm so sorry you have to deal with that. You really do deserve to have peace in your life and to have some semblance of like happiness to look towards. And in my opinion, an actually loving family who was supportive would encourage you to try and succeed. But it really seems like your parents are trying to keep you in their house just to make you miserable. Like if I was in your shoes, I would move in with my partner like right away. There's no way I would hesitate on that, especially based on the way you describe the way your parents are acting, because their behavior is absolutely atrocious. And if I was in your shoes, I would move out sooner than later. My dad expects me to text him, call him, and update him almost every single day. And at the age of 25, I feel like I'm going crazy, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my parents divorced when I was 2 years old, and my dad has always done his best to be in my life. My older brother and I used to love spending the day with him every Saturday. At some point when I was around 12 years old, my older brother stopped coming. My mom and dad had some bad custody and child support fights early on, and my older brother sided with my mom. I tried to stay neutral just to avoid hurting anybody. From there until college, I would visit my dad alone. He wasn't too pushy about texting or calling, but would always cross into overprotective. He would text me almost daily to check in, and on the few instances I forgot to answer, if I was maybe out with friends or fell asleep or if I was sick, he would text my mom and demand to know that I was okay. A few times my mom was asleep as well and didn't answer, so he called the police to my mom's house in the middle of the night. Our relationship started to get really bad right before college, and we were fighting all the time, but he would always attribute this to me being a hormonal teenager. And I think it was because I was struggling for more independence. My first year of college, he lost his high-paying job and all of his income. He had to move in with his mom to a different state where they still live together. She is immunocompromised, and he takes care of her, so they both have essentially not left the house since COVID. He is set on looking for virtual work and has been doing nothing but studying daily, sleeping weird hours, and applying for jobs for the last 5 years. And I'm honestly not even exaggerating, they don't do much else. I haven't seen either of them in 5 years, and he says he isn't ready for me to visit yet because he is ashamed of the situation. Our current schedule is as follows. We speak about 2 times a week on a set day and at a set time for 1 hour each. Both of these calls end up going way over an hour, and he guilt trips me when I try to wrap up, even though I have things to do around the house, as well as fitness classes, dinner to make, as well as many other things. During this call, I am not allowed to to walk or clean or cook or be outside or literally do anything else besides sit and just listen to him. In fact, if he hears any noise in the background, he gets angry. When I try to push back on this, he says that I probably waste time on 100 other things and can set aside 2 hours or more a week just to speak to him. Now, we don't have much to talk about, as I don't like to tell him about my life. He likes to debate or turn everything I mention to him into a negative or some kind of life lesson. I have been in an amazing relationship for almost a year that I simply haven't had the energy to tell him about because I know he's going to find a million things wrong with it. He's going to complain that he's a different religion, which is apparently the worst thing in the world, even though I'm not religious and neither is my boyfriend or my dad. We talk about my job occasionally, but I am not interested in climbing the corporate ladder or learning the games that he wants me to play. He doesn't have anything happening in his life either, since all he does is study for open roles that he finds. He usually spends our phone call just talking about the mistakes he's made in life and about how I should avoid them, as well as current events and politics and things going on in the job market. I'm not really interested in these things that he talks about, and I don't want to follow in his footsteps. So I mostly just stare at the wall and listen for an hour and a half, and I just try to sound interested. In addition to these calls, he always wants me to text him within 15 minutes of arriving at work, and this is just like the phone calls 2 days a week. He wants me to text him when I am home from work before 6 p.m., and if I'm running late, I have to call him and let him know. For reference, my commute is a safe and easy 20-minute ride. I also have to answer his daily nighttime check-in text messages where he's asking me how things are going, if I have any questions, and if I'm home. And I have to do this within 30 minutes. Now, I am not on my phone often and have missed responding on time to a few of them, which led to some really bad fights. We eventually settled on me texting him myself every night once I was home and not planning to leave. Lastly, he wants me to let him know if I go out on the weekends and text him when I'm home, which I think is fair. One important thing to note is that when I first moved into my own place a couple of years ago to be near my work, he had very strict rules about where I had to live, namely places with a doorman with buildings with cameras or in some safe part of the city, which is all really reasonable, but it is very expensive. I was doing well for myself, but I couldn't afford those amenity buildings on my own. It would be similar to New York City, where you can find affordable apartments in okay areas on a decent entry-level salary, but not the amenity buildings in a very nice area. My dad agreed to cover the rest and did so for about a year and a half, but a few months ago, right after I re-signed for another year, he told me that he ran out of money. I've been putting all the extra on my credit card, which he promises to pay back once he gets a job. I don't know when that will be, and of course, I will not be resigning unless things turn around, but I am kind of stuck in this situation. I wish I could say that this is the only reason I want to keep the relationship with him, but money is not worth a bad mental state. I can't say that it doesn't make me anxious, but I could end our relationship and walk away with a few thousand in debt. The truth is that I feel bad for him, and he makes me feel guilty if I don't put him first. My parents are European, and he says it's a very American mentality to not put your family first, that I should want to call him often, and I should feel bad if I know he's worrying about me, that if I can text him to let him know that I'm okay, then that is exactly what I should be doing. I've tried to ask that we cut back on communication and how much he relies on my responses, but he just calls me selfish. For reference, I have an excellent relationship with my mom and her side of the family. I call her to chat almost daily, and we talk about all the things in her life and in mine. She knows and has met my boyfriend, and she has my location, so she always knows when I'm safe. She doesn't force anything on me and doesn't turn everything negative or into a life lesson, so I love telling her about my life and keeping her updated. When I try to explain this to my dad, he basically insinuates that if my mom isn't checking in on me regularly, then she just doesn't care. Even as I'm typing this, I can see that this is not healthy. He says he is much better than most dads, but I mean, is that true? I just don't know what to do. I don't want to cut him off or end the relationship because he doesn't have anything else. No other close friends or family besides his mom. I love him a lot, and the financial tie doesn't help. It's easy to suggest setting a hard boundary, but he always follows up by saying, "Oh, so you're okay with knowing that I'm stressing out and there's something you can do to fix it, but you won't?" I mean, do I just say yes in that instance? I feel like I can't do this forever. I hate being attached to my phone and constantly anxious, and I feel like I'm reaching my breaking point. What should I do? Okay, honestly, it really seems like your dad is super controlling. I know you love him and you really do care about him and he has nobody else, but seriously, when is enough enough? For reference, the original poster is 25. Like, they are very well into adulthood, and in my opinion, what you're going through sounds super stressful and just super inappropriate. I mean, the nightly check-ins, the guilt tripping if you don't call him, as well as him calling the police at one point, all because he couldn't get in contact with you, like, that's insane. That is not normal behavior, and honestly, I just don't think that's something you should put up with. Because in my opinion, if I was in your shoes, I would be standing up for myself, and I really would be trying to put some kind of boundary up, because what you're describing is not okay, and in my opinion, you do not deserve that in the slightest. My entitled dad would never let me go on a field trip without causing a scene just to try and get back at my teachers, as he was convinced that all field trips were just a scheme for the teachers to make money, and I'm honestly just so embarrassed to deal with my dad, and now that he's in prison, I seriously hope I never have to deal with him ever again. Here's what happened. Okay, for a bit of background, my father was a single parent, but an extreme narcissist. He was awful to me all the time. He's actually been incarcerated in prison for 8 years, and that's counting the awful treatment he inflicted on my brother and me. So needless to say, I come from a broken and confusing family. My mother and father divorced when I was a few months old, and my brother was 2 years old. My mother was an extreme addict, and my father is a serial narcissist. They are quite the volatile pair, so I personally think that things may have been worse had they not divorced. In a surprising turn of events, the courts actually granted my grandparents custody of my brother and me, and I'm not sure exactly the details leading to that decision, but something tells me that it had to do with my mother being an addict and my father leaving my brother and I locked in the car during the court hearing. Our grandparents cared for us for 8 years, but ultimately gave my brother and I back to our father because he was constantly saying that he was going to get violent, and they simply couldn't take it anymore. It doesn't make sense to me. I mean, I don't know why or if they had authorities involved, but it is what it is, and all is said and done. Unfortunately, I can't ask them about it as they have passed away. After our father got us back, it was almost like it was his mission to make our lives miserable. The worst part about it is that doing this brought him pleasure. The more sadistic and cruel he was, the happier he'd be. He only interacted with us when he had to, and when he did, it was either for his own gain or to belittle or just treat us like garbage. He was a very sick man, and I'm grateful I was able to escape him when I was 16 years old. I have a restraining order against him, and word has it that when he was served the order, he was surprised, even though the reason he is in jail is because of the way he treated me. He was actually put up for parole evaluation in February, but that was thankfully denied. During his speech, he said, "I've hurt some people," but never specified or even mentioned my brother and me. He's disillusioned, disconnected, egotistical, and unremorseful. Now, with that bit of background out of the way, let me talk about a situation that happened when I was a kid. My father hated contributing to my school, or anything that involved me doing something he had to pay for, or something that he couldn't supervise. And this definitely included field trips. I wish I could say there was only one time this happened, but this was reoccurring every time that I brought home a permission slip. I would put it on the counter hours before he got home, so that I was as far away from him as possible when he read it. It didn't matter if it was for the zoo, a movie, amusement park, or anything. His first and only reaction was anger, just pure anger. I think it stemmed from his contempt of giving my school any kind of money. I went to public school, so it wasn't like he was paying any tuition or boarding fees, and it's also not like we didn't have any money. My dad was always buying expensive car parts, items for his growing room, and other expensive items that were only for him. Yet if I needed $15 for a field trip or $20 for lunch money for the month, based off his reactions, you would think that I'm asking him to buy me a concert ticket every single week. When he would read these permission slips, he would start off on a tirade about how incompetent my teachers were and how pathetic they were for asking him for money, even though it was all directly going towards buying me tickets for an event or any other expenses for the event. It seemed like he thought the teachers were lining their pockets with his money, and I was the one that he would take it out on. Each time I gave him a slip, he would yell for about 15 minutes, and he would make sure that I heard it. This led to me feeling a lot of anger and shame about just wanting to have fun with my classmates, because he would make me feel like I was the problem, like I was too expensive and an inconvenience. It was a stark contrast to how my grandma would make me feel. She would actually volunteer for field trips and the school store just so she could be close to me while I was at school. To have that sudden contempt thrown at me by someone who's supposed to care for me after years of being validated by someone I loved and who loved me back, it was one of the many reasons I began to suffer from depression at 11 years old. Now, my father's next step was always the same. He would take a pen and write horrible things to my teacher on top of the permission slip. He would write about how how incompetent and greedy they were, how they were lowlifes and idiots, how they just wanted his money even though my education was free. He would write on these permission slips top to bottom with a bunch of hate and insults all over them. But here's the thing, he'd still sign it though and provide the money so I could go. And he would still make me turn in the slip. He would make me hand the teachers these papers full of filth and hate. And obviously they knew it wasn't me who wrote it, but the shame and embarrassment that came from giving them those papers, it might have been easier on my conscience if I just never went on the field trips. These things were never reported to, by the way, and I will never understand why. My father also always followed up to make sure I gave the teachers these slips and would ask me what their reactions were. And I would just say that I gave it to them, but they didn't say anything, which really was the truth. Fast forward, and when I was in the 8th grade, I was really becoming aware about the shame and embarrassment that my father's rants and egos would cause me. I remember that there was another field trip and I wanted to go, but there was no way I was going to give my father this slip for him to deface. So I found a check with his signature on it and I just forged his signature. It wasn't great, it was sloppy and gritty, and you could tell that it was definitely forged. I thought I'd try my luck anyways, and I paid for the trip out of my own pocket. Well, I got caught immediately, and my teacher held a conference with me and the principal, but not my father. Now, in the moment, I believe that I just didn't do a good enough job, which may have been true, but now that I'm older, I realize that they knew I forged it because the paper wasn't covered in insults. They gave me another slip and gave me one more chance to have it signed properly. Now, I don't recall how the rest of that story went, or if I even went on the trip. I just remember the fear boiling in my belly, knowing that I had to talk to my father about forging his signature. Long story short, my father is a grade A piece of garbage. You should never jeopardize your child's mental well-being or integrity, all because you don't want to pay for a field trip. Just don't sign the thing and figure something else out. My dad viewed me as a pawn to get his awful and misguided points across, to try and establish dominance in a situation that had nothing to do with him. I have so many other experiences about him, and I really hope that this story resonated with someone. Wow, your dad really is a jerk. Like, that really is unfair for him to treat you like that, but also for him to go out of his way just to embarrass you. Like, why can't he just sign the slip and move along? Or go to the principal themselves and be like, hey, I don't like the fact that I have to pay all this money for a field trip. That's the way you want to complain. You don't do that through your kid. That seems so counterintuitive and just really ridiculous. So truly, I'm so sorry you had to deal with that. I'm sorry you had a dad who treated you like garbage, and hopefully you never have to deal with him ever again. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my rich classmate that not everyone has it financially as good as her? Because I'm honestly so tired of hearing about her rich person problems that it's starting to cause a divide in my friend group. And at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 30-year-old female and I'm in my 2nd year of university. And the classmate I called out is 19 years old. And for the sake of the story, we'll call her Ellen. That's not her real name. Now, I wouldn't call us friends, but we worked together a lot because of a big assignment. And I often spent lunch with her and the same group of students. So we were kind of like colleagues. Ellen's parents own their own supermarket and are quite well off. And by well off, I mean they have a yacht, 2 vacation homes, and 4 cars. Now, I know this fact because Ellen has a habit of bringing up her financial status on a regular basis. At the beginning of the year, it didn't annoy me because it was just casually mentioned now and then, and she wasn't hurting anyone with it. But as time went on, this changed to her actively trying to turn the conversation towards the topic, often during times where it would be considered tone deaf. For example, another classmate that we will call Elise, that's not her real name, got into a car accident and had to stay in the hospital. As she was sharing her experience during lunch, Ellen said to us, "Oh, I got into a really bad accident too once on my yacht. I lost my balance and fell backwards. My neck was sore for days." But the situation where I called her out was this one. Ellen's best friend, who we will call Lydia, had her backpack and laptop stolen and was crying uncontrollably. Ellen gave her a hug and actually said, "You don't need to cry, you could just buy a new one." Lydia said that she couldn't do that, to which Ellen replied, "Oh, come on, it's not that expensive. With the software we need, a laptop of $1,200 should be enough." Well, I replied by saying, "Ellen, not everyone is as financially comfortable as you." Well, when I said that, Ellen clearly didn't like that. She raised her voice and told me that people only see the money, but they don't see how much effort she has put in to get it. That she works at her parents' supermarket every Sunday, and that she deserves every coin that she owns. I told her that I didn't mean that she doesn't deserve it, and that it is a good thing that she doesn't doesn't have to worry about money, but that she should consider that most of our fellow students have a different situation. Now, it didn't get mentioned anymore, but the overall mood has been quite cold since then, and I'm wondering if maybe I went too far. Both my boyfriend and best friend, both in their 30s, said that I should have ignored this because they say 19 years old is basically still a kid, and that it's not my job to teach her empathy. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because at this point, I really don't know what to do. Your boyfriend and your friend, in my opinion, are completely wrong. Being 19 years old does not mean that you're still a kid, and you absolutely can learn empathy long before that age. Like, your friend Ellen is a complete spoiled brat, and in my opinion, she absolutely got handouts from her parents. Like, I don't know many supermarket jobs where they work like, what, minimum wage, if not just a little bit higher, and they're somehow magically able to afford a laptop that costs well over $1,000. Like, I don't know about you, but that kind of expendable income at the drop of a hat isn't always easy to come by, especially as a college student. Like, I don't know about you, but I was broke as a college student. I had no money, and I couldn't just spend that kind of money on a new laptop. So for Ellen to be like, oh, that's okay, just buy a new one, it's like, wow, you are very immature and you seriously cannot read the room. And no, it's not because they're 19 years old. And if anything, it's just indicative of the fact that they definitely are so out of touch. Like, Ellen has no idea how the real world works because mommy and daddy are definitely not struggling. So she has no clue what it's like to struggle financially. She has no idea what it's like to go without food or to go without money or even like basic necessities of life. So when someone like this chimes in and says, oh yeah, I hurt my neck on my yacht, I know exactly how your car accident feels. Like, at that point, you almost want to scream out, oh my God, shut up, Ellen. We don't want to hear about your rich person injury. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Your classmate's being incredibly stupid when she says stuff like that. And in my opinion, I don't blame you for calling her out in the slightest. Am I the jerk for turning away my new neighbor and her child after they once again showed up to my house unannounced? Because right now I'm being called rude. And at this point, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 26-year-old female and I just moved into a new small apartment block 2 weeks ago. And since we moved in, we've been busy setting up furniture and just setting up the place in general. The afternoon that I moved in, one of my neighbors came up to the steps. And for reference, each apartment has a little front area and mine faces the car park. She introduced herself as a single mom with a 4-year-old daughter and gave me a succulent to say welcome. I was very appreciative. I said thank you, and then we spoke for a few minutes. I work 3 days from home and am usually home in the evening after work and at night. Well, this neighbor has started showing up a lot. I can generally hear her approaching with her daughter, and they'll show up with a painting or something the daughter has made to give me. It is nice, but I do prefer to keep to myself, and often I'm kind of in my pajamas, so I'm not really dressed for any kind of visitors. So I have to kind of make myself presentable in under a minute with no notice. This last instance, they showed up at 7 o'clock p.m. The daughter had made some kind of drawing and wanted to drop it off. Now, I had had a long day. I was sitting in a giant sweater on my couch eating ice cream, and I was just trying to watch a film. And when I saw them through the window, I had to quickly jump up, put on shorts, and greet them at the door. I said thank you as always, and the daughter wanted to come in and see what I was watching. It was nothing terrible, but just maybe a little bit too grown up for a 4-year-old. I politely said, look, thank you, but I'm not really in the mood tonight. Could you please leave? My neighbor responded by saying, but she's just a kid. It'll only be a few minutes. She loves making things to show you. I said to her, look, I'm child-free by choice. Can you please leave? Thank you and have a good night. Well, ever since then, they have not been back, but they did leave a note in my mailbox explaining that I was rude and her daughter was upset. She apparently cried and they would be open to an apology. Now, I haven't responded, but I don't want to apologize. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation for turning them away? Because right now, I'm really not sure what to do. Wow, the way that mom is acting is really obnoxious. Like, she knows you work from home and you probably work a lot to some degree. So for her to be like, oh, come on, just let my kid in and roam around your house. It's like, sure, this is cool, but like, you can't just stop by unannounced. That's my opinion at least. And it sounds like the original poster had the same idea. Apparently, they said they're going to speak to the neighbor in person in the morning and say that they're sorry for their choice of words, but they want to have a boundary in place that they can't just show up unannounced. They have plans to not be combative in any kind of way, and they just want to have this conversation person to person. And in my opinion, I think that's a really good idea. So hopefully when you have this conversation, you can set up some kind of boundary, because in my opinion, the way that she was acting by just showing up all the time out of nowhere was completely disrespectful and honestly a little bit obnoxious. Am I the jerk for not sharing my food with my girlfriend after I asked her multiple times if she wanted to order anything when I order my food? Because right now she's calling me selfish for not sharing, despite the fact that I haven't had anything to eat eat for over 30 hours because I needed to get ready for a minor examination at a hospital. Here's what happened. Okay, so this week I had a minor examination at the hospital that required me to not eat for 24 hours prior to the test. My appointment was also delayed by 4 hours, so by the time it was done and by the time I got home, it was over 32 to 34 hours since I had eaten anything. Now, because of this, I was very hungry and tired, so I decided to order some food. I asked my girlfriend if she wanted anything, but she said no. My girlfriend said that she would rather cook than order out, but I said I'd prefer a takeaway so we can just have separate meals. She said that she would have rathered we both just cooked, but I again refused and told her I'm ordering myself some food. So I ordered the food and she decided not to cook and just said that she didn't want anything. Once my food came, I was sat eating and she came over and asked if she could have some. I then asked her if she was serious. I pointed out that I had asked her multiple times if she wanted anything and that she's waiting for me to sit and enjoy my food just to try and take it. I mentioned that I ordered exactly what I want just because of how hungry I am, but she just said she was hungry too since she hadn't eaten. I mentioned that the only reason she hadn't eaten was because I didn't want to cook for her, but that doesn't mean that she can come over and just take my food instead. I said if she wants something to eat, she can either order something for herself or she can cook something, but I'm not sharing what I ordered. Well, she said I was being too selfish and that I have enough to share, so I should be fine sharing with her. She said she's not asking for much and that I'm being unfair, but I don't see how I am since I offered to order her something multiple times. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? Because right now I'm really frustrated and I seriously don't know what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all, but also this story is really funny to me. I mean, you did ask her multiple times, hey, do you want to order anything as well? Because I'm sure you would have ordered it no problem and brought it along with your own food. So for her to sit there after you haven't eaten for like what, 30 plus hours and request that you give over your food to her, like that seems really unfair to me, and honestly, I just don't think that was okay. And I'm willing to bet that she knew you were in the hospital, right? Like there's no way she didn't know you had to go without food for over 24 hours, right? Like how could she know that information and then be like, oh yeah, give me some of your food? Like if my significant other had gone through some kind of medical treatment and they had not eaten in 30 hours, I would be pampering them like crazy. I would get her food and water or whatever else she needed. But it seems like your girlfriend took a really selfish approach, and in my opinion, that is just not cool. So no, you are definitely not the jerk in this scenario, and I think the way your girlfriend tried to like turn this against you, in my opinion, is super unfair. Am I the jerk for not cleaning up garbage in my neighbor's yard? Because right now, my neighbor is upset with me as they assume that I'm the reason their yard is messy. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I live in a 2-flat with landlords in the other half, so it's important that I be a good neighbor. Otherwise, I just roll my eyes at this and move along. I'm not a huge fan of the next door neighbors and their very loud dogs, but I choose to just not interact with them. I have a small container garden that is mostly herbs, some tomatoes that do well in containers, and echinacea. Since native pollinators and other beneficial insects live or lay eggs in the dead stuff for the winter, I don't clean up last year's garden until I'm ready to plant the current year's garden. I do what I have to revive perennials early in the season, but last year's dead annuals stay put until I'm planting. As it's not quite time yet, all my annual seedings are still inside. Now, all that is to illustrate that I never have empty pots left sitting outside. The ugly dead stuff gets stacked up and pulled in towards my door, but it would have to be hurricane force winds for any of it to blow away, since we're talking about large planters full of dirt. Now, it has been a windy day here, as is common in the springtime, so some trash has been blown around. A little over a week ago, I noticed an empty pot that isn't mine sitting in my neighbor's yard, and this really will be important later on. Their dogs were playing with it, and I figured it was either theirs or it had blown in, and they were letting the dogs have some fun with it until trash day. But unfortunately, I was wrong. It turns out, since I'm the one who has a garden, they assumed it was mine, and they were stewing about it, and the fact that I didn't go over there to pick it up all week. I mean, nobody even said a word to me. Then, yesterday, I was leaving and I saw the empty pot had been stuck on top of one of my pots with a perennial echinacea in it, crushing some of the new leaves that were coming up. Now, it is a hardy plant and it will recover, but that was still a rude thing to do, especially when I have stacks of planters full of dead things they could have just put it on. My landlords happen to be outside too, and they told me that neighbor is really upset that I didn't go pick up my garbage that blew into their yard. They continue that even if it wasn't mine, it still has the appearance of being mine, since I'm the one with the patio full of planters. Never mind mind that all my planters match and this one didn't. Also, never mind the fact that all my planters have enough weight to not blow away at all times, and this one was completely empty. The argument is that I should have just taken responsibility for the trash planter because I also happen to engage with that hobby. For what it's worth, the planter was cracked and unusable. So honestly, what do you think? Due to my hobby, should I have grabbed this planter from their yard just to avoid the appearance of my stuff blowing over there in the wind? Even though this is not the case, just to avoid conflict? What should I do? Okay, first and foremost, there's no way I would ever put up with that. Like, not only do you not have to clean up that mess in the yard, but the fact that you also enjoy gardening doesn't suddenly mean that you're responsible for someone else's mess in another person's yard. Like, that is honestly ridiculous, and there's no good excuse for that. And the fact that your landlord would be like, oh, but it looks like it might have been yours, so it's time for you to clean it up. You need to do the right thing and avoid the appearance that it might have been you. No, I don't think you need to do that at all. I think if anything, you need to go to the neighbor that's upset with you and explain that, hey, this is not my potted plant. Mine are up there and they're definitely not blowing away. So no, this is not your responsibility, and it is absolutely insane and unfair that your landlord would assume that this is your responsibility. An entitled Karen thinks that she has the right to take anything and everything off of other people's desk, claiming that if it's out in the open, then she has every right to take it and steal it for herself. And I'm honestly still blown away by this level of entitlement that I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so we have this entitled jerk that works in our department. She's the secretary, so she comes in at 7 o'clock in the morning, and everyone else comes in at about 7:30. The other day she was late, which is a very rare occasion, and as soon as she came in, she came to my desk and took one of my K-cups. She then proceeded to try and use it at my Keurig on my desk. I asked her what she was doing, but she said to me that because it's out, she figured it was for anybody. I said to her, no, the things I bring in and pay for and leave at my desk are not for everybody. Then I asked her how long she's been taking my K-cups. Her response was to say, well, not every day. So I obviously told her that my things at my desk are off limits. I told some coworkers what happened, and they all said they would come into work and get the feeling that someone had been rifling through their things. So we decided someone would come in early and sit in the conference room looking over at our desk just to see what was going on before we came in. Well, we discovered that she would come in and take things off a person's desk. She makes coffee from my machine, makes an oatmeal packet from a box someone leaves at their desk, use honey from someone else's desk, and in the meantime goes from desk to desk and just goes through people's things. She took post-it notes from one person, a pen from another one. She took one of someone else's daily vitamins. Then she ate and drank her coffee and reorganized her desk with other people's things before 7:30 when everyone else gets in. Now, obviously, we were shocked, angry, and felt very violated. I mean, how long was this going on for? We went to our boss and had a meeting to discuss what we knew was going on, and this lady saw no fault in what she did. She kept saying if it's out in the open, then anyone can use it, by following up and saying, why leave it out if you don't want people to touch it? Everybody said they felt violated and didn't think that they had to lock up post-it notes at the end of the night, but this entitled Karen just shrugged it off and saw zero problem with what she did. The boss told her to knock it off, but we just don't trust that she won't do it again. Now, as a result, everyone locks up everything in their filing cabinet at the end of the day. We thought about it and we all thought we were crazy. I would swear I had more K-cups in my box, or I knew I just brought enough snacks for the week, or I swear I had 2 pens on my desk, but somehow things would get still misplaced without my knowledge. After that fiasco, we realized all the other liberties she takes with other people's things. She would be using people's hand lotion without asking, taking candy off of someone's desk, using someone's creamer in their fridge, and we kept telling her enough is enough, but she really thinks she has a right to all of those things. So, needless to say, her entitlement is unreal, and I never in my life have ever worked with an entitled Karen that behaves this way. Okay, it is crazy to me that she didn't get in more trouble than that. She is straight up stealing from people's desk, and all she gets is a slap on the wrist. Like, seriously, what is going on right now? That is really weird to me, and it's a shame that the boss didn't take more steps to punish this entitled Karen for stealing from people. Because you know what? Chances are she probably stole from the boss as well. And here's the thing, if you work in an office setting and you know there are people around you and they have stuff out in the open, it literally goes without saying that you don't touch their stuff and you don't steal their property. So for this lady to literally be grabbing cups off this person's desk and using their coffee machine for their own benefit, that is not only disgusting but also so inappropriate. So yeah, this entitled Karen was completely out of line, and as someone who values their privacy, I would be furious if she did that to me, because there is no way in the world I would ever put up with that. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled tour guide tries to get me in trouble after I kick her out of the room for being a distraction. So when she tries to complain that I was a jerk for no reason, I decided to stand up for myself, resulting in her getting a formal warning. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened about 3 years ago. Back then, I was still working in a brewery as a brewer. At that day, one of the trainees was working in the brew house for the first time alone. An hour before I could clock off, he came to me and asked me if I could help him. So we went to the mash mill, which is the mill that will crush the malt into flour, and he told me that it isn't working anymore. We started the mill, and after a few seconds, malt started pouring out of the top part of the mill. I then climbed up the wobbly ladder that we had and started checking the small bin on top of the mill. Now, the thing was, the mill is nearly 100 years old, so we had to work carefully. So while I was digging around in the malt because I thought there was a plug in the bin, the trainee started screwing up the mill. The ladder was about 6 meters tall, so we both had to yell in order to communicate. And suddenly, the door flies open, and one of the tour guides walks in with a few guests that she was showing around. The trainee and I were still working and yelling, and suddenly this dumb idiot comes over to us and demands that we stop our work because she's doing a tour right now. Now, mind you, I was still on top of a wobbly ladder, and I really should already be home by now, so I was quite upset. I yelled back at her and said, "Shut up. Repairing the mill is more important than showing around a bunch of tourists that are only here to get wasted." Well, funnily enough, a few months prior to that, we had a meeting with the big boss, and at that meeting, the boss gave everyone who worked in production the explicit authority to expel the guides and their tours from rooms in the brewery should they in any way interfere with our work in some way, which is something that the guides knew. So I told the guide to immediately leave the malt room, which she did with an angry glare. The trainee and I then managed to fix the mill, and I went home. The next day, I was ordered to the boss's office. He told me that the guide complained about me for being rude and unnecessarily expelling her from the malt room. I then admitted that I may have been harsh, but I explained that I was shoulder deep in malt on top of a ladder over time. So please just forgive me for not being in the best of moods. I then explained what exactly happened yesterday, and the trainee can confirm my story. The boss then apologized for suspecting me and sent me on my way. And thankfully, the tour guide got a stern talking to, and they were given a formal warning. Man, I love it when people who think they have all this power and authority over you try to exercise this make-believe power only to then get shut down. Like, I'm willing to guess that what was going wrong with this mill is probably really important because it seems like you really wanted to fix this sooner than later. So yeah, the way that tour guide acted was completely inappropriate, and I think you did the right thing for defending yourself, because clearly she was just salty she got kicked out of that room, and she obviously just wanted to get you in trouble, and that, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. My entitled in-laws came to visit our baby while they had COVID, refusing to tell us that they felt sick despite the fact that my baby just had surgery. And now, even after they've left my house, I still hold a grudge against them despite my husband's protest. And at this point, I seriously don't think I'll forgive them anytime soon. Here's what happened. Okay, so my spouse and I live across the country from both of our parents. We live so far away due to work, and maybe we see our families once or twice a year. Last year, we had our first baby, and both of our parents were extremely happy. It was just me and my husband taking care of a baby by ourselves in another state. My parents came out to visit our baby first, and they were super helpful. I mean, they helped us cook and clean and watch the baby some mornings so that we could get some rest, and they ended up leaving after a couple of weeks. And then his parents came out when our baby was 2 months old, and mind you, me and my husband were exhausted. Our baby was born with clubfoot, so we had to go through weekly cast chains from the baby's toes up to his thighs. So we had Achilles tendon surgery, and now we are in braces for his feet. So it's just been really tiring for the both of us. So when his parents came out, they decided it would be smart to go to Mexico for a weekend and have a party with their family literally a couple days before seeing us. They were feeling sick and didn't tell us until after arriving, and right when we picked them up from the airport. Mind you, I'm a nurse, and I kept telling them to test for COVID since we had home test kits. They both were too proud and said no at first that they didn't have it, but I ended up making them, and yes, they did have COVID. And when I found this out, I was so heated. My husband was so hurt because we just just wanted his parents to see his first baby, and they had to isolate themselves into another room. I ended up having to take care of them and feed them instead of them coming to help us out. His mom ended up having a later stay than his dad. She stayed for like 2 months per my husband's request, and I could not be more ready for her to freaking leave. Her constant nagging about the house needing to be cleaned and how we weren't doing any cooking and cleaning in our brand new built house. I never snapped at her, but I really wish I would have. I have so much built up anger towards this woman. I remember one day me and my husband had no sleep with our baby the night prior, and she was in an upset mood, and she was complaining about the dust in our house. She legitimately dragged her finger across our stairs and told us to look at the dust on her finger. Like, I seriously could not believe what she was doing. I mean, I am just so over them. They are both just so annoying. His dad tried to give the baby a Ritz cracker at 4 months old, and his mom tried to give him water without a regular cup too. His dad was so upset we didn't go to the beach when they were here. I mean, he was only here for 2 weeks, but was isolated for most of that time. Our baby literally just had surgery, and he was upset me and my husband didn't want to go. The baby couldn't even get in the water because he had his cast on still. I've talked to my husband, and he tells me it's been 8 months now, and he's telling me to just forget about it, but I can't. They are just so annoying to me, and I seriously will never get over the way that they treated us. Yeah, that really is inconsiderate. The fact that they showed up to your house after your baby had surgery, and they're like, yeah, we just don't feel well after this trip. And then they try to be like, no, we're not going to take a COVID test. Only for it then to be revealed that yes, they do have COVID. Like, all of that at once as some kind of like big combo would have driven me nuts. Like, that would have driven me up a wall. There's no way I would be okay with that. So yeah, I don't blame you for having this grudge against your in-laws, because the way they acted was so selfish. They didn't even help you for a second with your new baby, and in my opinion, that is completely inappropriate. Tonight at my serving job at the restaurant I work at, I finally lost my composure on a bunch of entitled customers who treated me like garbage after I served them for well over 4 hours. And I'm honestly still very satisfied with the way that I shut these people down. Here's what happened. Okay, I've been serving for about a year now, and I've never understood how servers can lose their cool at tables. Well, it finally happened last night. I had so many good tables last night, but I had one table that was just completely frustrating. There were 2 ladies that were lovely. I had served them for about 3 hours before another 2 ladies joined them, and I went up to the table and I said, "Hi ladies, are you just catching up or did you want to order some food?" It was very late, and the 2 ladies that recently joined had been sitting at the bar for a while, so I assumed they just recognized my table and sat down to say hi. Well, one of the ladies goes, "Obviously we came here to eat." So I grabbed her menu and I gave her some time to order. In the meantime, I helped her friend select a wine. The same lady and I were going over the wine list after she ordered her food, and she took it out of my hands and said, "Give that to me, I can read." So I just kind of left and came back later to get her order. After serving this same table for about 4.5 hours, I dropped off the check and it was sitting there empty for like 20 minutes. As I'm standing at the computer, this lady goes, "Hello," and then she whistles at me and snaps her fingers. I honestly didn't know she was trying to get my attention, but I turned around with probably the most sour expression on my face, trying to see who was addressing someone like that in the restaurant. When I realized she was addressing me like that, I unintentionally gave her a dirty look and held up my finger to tell her I just need a moment. When I went over there, she said to me, "What's with the face, sweetie?" And this is where I really messed up. I said to her, "You never need to address anyone like that. My name is Sky, so next time you need me, please refrain from calling me over like a stray dog." When I said that, all of their jaws dropped and my heart sank. I've never once gotten even close to talking back to one of my tables, but I was coming off of a 10-hour shift, and these ladies struck my last nerve. And no, they didn't even tip me, but their tab was like $40 after being there for 4 hours, so trust me, I cut my losses for that table long before they decided to leave. Yeah, those people were completely out of line. For them to snap at you and be like, "Hey, over here, what's wrong with your face? Of course I'm ordering, I want to sit down and eat." Like, all these remarks would have definitely rubbed me the wrong way as well, and I honestly just love the fact that you decided, no, I am absolutely not going to put up with that. You are not their servant, you are not their slave, they do not get to whistle you over whenever they want you. And in my opinion, I think you were just giving them the same energy they were giving you. They were acting snobby and stuck up, they were treating you like garbage, so why not return the favor? At that point, after 4 hours of serving these jerks, like seriously, who cares about a tip? Like, their behavior was atrocious, and I'm willing to bet that this is the first time anybody's called them out on that, because their jaws hit the floor. Like, you can tell that they've never been talked to like that, and they've always kind of like gotten away with it. So the fact that you called them out and put them in their place is just beautiful to me. The original poster goes on to say that apparently the manager never found out because these idiots just didn't say anything. So in my opinion, I chalk that up completely as a win, because their behavior was completely unacceptable, and they absolutely deserve to be called out. Am I the jerk for not wanting one of our roommates to move into our new place with me and my husband? Because right now, after dealing with this guy for several months, as well as his messy behavior and lack of responsibility, I'm doubting if I could ever live with him ever again. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so let me just start off by saying that I'm trying to make this as easy as possible for all parties involved. But with that being said, I'm not really sure how to work this out. For a bit of background, I'm a 29-year-old female and I got married almost 2 weeks ago. My husband and I have lived together for several years, and I am the main financial body in the home, and I handle all the bills, groceries, and finances of all kinds. A friend of ours who is a 35-year-old male, in the last several months went through a hard breakup and has been sleeping on our couch. We have just been trying to help him out, but definitely not without issue. He does give us money here and there to help out with groceries, gas, and household needs, but he also breaks several of the HOA rules our condo has. He is not on a lease as it's a private rental for us with a private owner we know, but as of the beginning of June, we have to relocate because the owner would like to sell the property. He's been very good to us and we hold no ill will towards him because of his need to sell, but we have been on the search over the last 2 months, and with this guy as our new roommate not having a place to stay, aside from him staying with us, we have considered having him come along. But as we have lived together over the last couple of months, my husband and I are finding more and more reasons for not wanting him to come with us. Now, just to name a few, we have found piles of cigarette butts on our back patio, which by the way is against the HOA rules and policies. He's also not keeping his space clean. For example, he will leave mostly full cans of soda on our table close to the edge and stack them on top of one another. He will also have dirty clothes out in the open and just leave trash everywhere. Also, he doesn't help out with household chores at all. And this includes stuff like the dishes, taking out the dogs, which one of them is his, or doing any cleaning of any kind. One thing that really gets me is him knocking once when our bedroom door is obviously closed, and then proceeding to just walk in after the first time. Now, we are looking at places to move to, and we found one very recently that would allow his 8-year-old pit bull, but it has many other rules. He would not be allowed to smoke on the property and would have to walk to the street. Mind you, it's not a big complex, but this was a big point of contention for him. He would also have to part with one of his animals, most likely his cat, because there is a limit of 2 pets per unit, and we would also be parting ways with our cats to follow this rule. He's complained about having to follow certain rules or leave his car behind, along with his inability to clean up after himself or even respect our space, and it's honestly just gotten to the point where we just don't want him to come along. So how do we nicely tell him that we want to live on our own as many married couples want to do? Because right now it seems like a very sensitive situation, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, first and foremost, I want to elaborate on something the original poster said, because they stated they would be willing to get rid of one of their cats just so they could follow the rules of this new place that they would be going to. But apparently they would only do that if they brought their friend along. But now that they've effectively changed their mind, they're not actively planning on rehoming their cats with a friend or something like that. That was immediately bothering me, but it looks like they clarified that towards the end of the story. But honestly, with that in mind, I think it really would be a good idea to sit this friend down and say, hey, we're moving out and you can't come with us. According to the original poster, they have all known about this since March 1st, and they currently have until June to figure out their living situation. And in my opinion, that is plenty of time for this guy to find something else. Like seriously, you do not have to be shackled with this guy for the rest of your life. You are under no obligation to deal with this guy on a daily basis, and you definitely do not have to feel forced to have him as a roommate, especially if he's an awful roommate. Like, this guy doesn't carry his weight, he doesn't do anything to improve the situation, and I can see him being such a problem in this new place. So in my opinion, I don't think you would be the jerk for wanting your roommate to find his own place, because based on what you're describing, he did not sound like he would be a good roommate in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not comforting my brother after my dad's parents pull the rug out from underneath him? Because right now there are a lot of hard feelings around my family, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, to get the details out of the way, biologically my 20-year-old brother is my half-brother. My parents were married when he was conceived, but my mom didn't cheat, and my dad swore to raise my brother no matter what. He gave him the family middle name Benedict, and he legally adopted him. He never treated him any different to me and my younger brother. We always knew the truth though, and everyone did because it was sort of a public thing, and this includes my dad's family. Now, my dad's family are people I never really liked. I always picked up on the fact that they didn't like my older brother, and that they didn't like my mom for having him or my dad's decision to raise my brother. I remember being 10 years old and hearing some of my aunts and uncles complain with my grandfather that my brother got Benedict as a middle name when he wasn't one of us. Another time they made comments about my mom that were really derogatory and not kind at all. Now, I had mentioned it to my parents and they told me they would deal with it, and my dad told me not to worry. Well, it got more blatant in recent years. They're still careful not to say it around my parents and siblings or one of my uncle's wives, but I heard them say more disgusting things a few months ago, and I just called them out on it. They acted like my brother was some kind of stain on the family and that he was wrong to even exist in the first place. It's not just their attitude towards my brother either. They are pretty homophobic and racist, but again, they keep it hidden from the family and my uncle's wife. So I decided I should tell my brother because he's an adult and I didn't want him getting hurt, but he didn't believe me. He called me a liar and accused me of having a personal grudge against them and trying to turn him against them for no good reason. And honestly, this really upset me. Even my parents said my dad's family had apologized for saying what they did before, but they wouldn't do it again. Well, things really hit the fan a week ago, and my dad's parents, with the support from his siblings, made it clear that my brother is not their family. He will not inherit with the rest of the grandchildren. They don't want him sitting with the family for the funeral. They threw the fact that he's not blood in his face, and the fact that he was born from some lady of the night, that they never loved him, and they had taken every measure to make sure he gets nothing, which according to them is exactly what he deserves. Now, of course, my family are all devastated, and my brother more so than anybody else. He moved back in with us temporarily, and my parents and younger brother are supporting him, but nobody has acknowledged that I did try to warn them, and I tried to help them see and even stood up for him. They told me that nobody could have seen it coming, and I was like, oh really? I must be nobody then, and I must have never said a word before. Well, they told me to focus less on myself and comfort my brother, and I told them I tried to do that and I was called a liar for it. My brother told me that I had not brought him any proof, and he just wants to feel like he's part of our family. So honestly, am I the jerk for trying to reveal the truth to my brother? Because right now, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, in my opinion, I kind of think you're being a jerk because it really does seem like you're making this about you. You really should be trying to focus on your brother right now and making sure he feels welcome in your family. Because right now, it seems like you're acting as if, oh yeah, I told you so, but you didn't listen. But really, is right now the time to be doing that? Your brother is clearly grieving the fact that his extended family has rejected him entirely, and you want to sit here and make it about you? I really think you have your priorities mixed up. So yes, in my opinion, you are definitely the jerk. And I think if you really cared about your brother, you would put your pride aside and try to focus on him. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.